Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Mayor Erica A. Stewart, and I'd like to call this regular meeting of the City Council to order, stating that all of the members are present. Vice Mayor Pease, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. Please stand as you're able.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Well, first today we get to do something kind of special, well, very, very special. We don't do very often, luckily. We get to do the oath of office for City Manager Whitney McDonald. And I'm really excited to be able to have this swearing in moment and make Whitney McDonald the official city manager. We have been really looking at how do we find the right person to be able to run this city. And that was a national search with many people looking through all of these resumes and going through the entire process, and the right person was definitely chosen. And we are really thankful for you taking on this new adventure. So if you'll meet me up at the podium, I will give you a official City of San Luis Obispo pin, and then the city clerk will swear you in. So we will have, is that on? Yes. Yeah, okay, great, thank you. So we will have Teresa Parrington, the city clerk, swear you in, but here is your official. Thank you. Yeah, I know it. And then before you say a few words, we do have one more certificate of recognition, so I'll pass you on to the city clerk.
Okay, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Whitney McDonald,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of
or
evasion,
purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
I furthermore agree
I furthermore agree
to abide by the rules,
to abide by the rules,
regulations, and laws
regulations, and laws
of the City of San Luis Obispo.
of the City of San Luis Obispo.
Congratulations.
And now I'll call up Jen Ford from Assemblymember Don Addis's office.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart and City Council members. It's an honor to be here this evening on behalf of Assemblymember Don Addis. I'm going to read a certificate of recognition on this special day. So this is presented to Whitney McDonald, who's now, I can officially say, a city manager of San Luis Obispo, Whitney McDonald. In celebration of the oath of office ceremony, on behalf of the state of California and the 30th Assembly District, I extend a warm welcome to you as San Luis Obispo's city manager and wish you all the best as you lead the city toward a positive, prosperous, and healthy future. Your passion for public service and accomplished track record are valuable assets that will serve our community for years to come. I wish you many successes and fulfillment on your journey. Signed by the Assembly Member. Congratulations.
I think I'll take an opportunity. It's rare that I get an opportunity to stand here. I was joking with Greg, should I keep it to 3 minutes? And in which case, you know, you can go ahead and start the timer. We'll see how I do. It's really just the deepest honor of my life to be here in front of you all, accepting this role and the oath of office that, you know, I've said a few times, but it just sinks in each time in a new way. It is just a monumentous occasion for me. So I really want to thank the council in particular for making this choice and giving me this opportunity. It's quite an honor. I can't even really begin to describe it. I also would really like to thank our staff, all of our staff who work here for the city, our leadership team, our directors, and people I've served with over the past year, and those who work here every day to serve the community. It's really, we have an amazing, outstanding team here, and I wouldn't be here without them. I also wouldn't be here without my family. And so I definitely want to thank my husband, my kids who are both here as well, and my mom who happens to be here. I think a lot of people have heard about my mom, and you'll probably hear more about her as well. And so for her to be here tonight is really meaningful and moving. We'll see how much maybe I might cry. And my mother and father-in-law are also here as well. So this is definitely, it takes a village, I think, to support this role and me in getting here as well. It took all of you as well and your trust in me to get to this point. And I want to let you know I am going to work hard every day to keep earning that. So just a few words of why am I here? I think a lot of people who I've been able to get to know over time probably know a lot about why, but for anybody who might be curious, I've said this before again, it's largely my mom. She really instilled in me a desire and drive to serve the public, to use all that I've been given, the privileges in my life, the education that I've been given to serve others. And to get to this point, she really laid that path for me and helped me in seeing myself oddly in a room just like this. Spending time thinking being at a dais was really fun as a kid because she, as a city manager, really opened us to city halls. I spent lots of hours of my life in city halls as she did the work of leading a city as a city manager and a finance director and putting in the hours that it takes in order to help support the work that a city does. She really instilled in me as well a deep love of our democracy and a belief in what we all do here together. It's an imperfect system, but it's the best one we have, and it's messy and beautiful. And it really is a counterpart to, I think, the human condition and human experience. It all comes together and knits together. It's why we're here. It's why I'm here. I believe really strongly in the work that we do as a local government and what we all do together here as a community. I'm also here because I've fallen in love with San Luis Obispo. It's really gotten into my heart, and it's just such an honor to serve this community. Our partners here who support the work that we all do, the work that they do to help make a community, our community members who are passionate and also dedicated, who come and engage and really truly come to you all and to us with a desire to help their neighbors and make a community that works together. To be able to serve these people is really just a joy. And the work that we all do together is a joy. We do kind of joke, you know, are we having fun? Yes, we are having fun. And it's hard work because the issues that we deal with are every issue. It's the main problems of our time, of our human existence together. We wrestle with that here on the ground every day, and we're doing it together for one another. And it's hard work, but it's good work, and it's work and a life worth living. And so to have the opportunity to do that together with you all is just really, I'm really grateful. So I just want to say thank you. I really look forward to continuing to get out into the community, to meet people more and get to know them better and let them know me as well, and get through me, know us, know our city, our staff, our really talented and dedicated people who work here every day. We are here to serve each other and our residents and our visitors. And so I hope that I want to be a conduit for that, and also, again, live these values. Because here, a big part of why I'm here as well is we're in San Luis Obispo, we're not scared of doing hard things. It takes courage and bravery, and we do that every day. And you all do that through your leadership. And I can't think of a better way to spend my days and hours and gray hairs, and it's well worth it. And so I just want to say thank you, and I can't wait for the work to come. Okay, thank you.
Can I have Whitney's family come up? I know, I'm sorry. But I'll enjoy it. What?
Wait, one more. Hold on.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your amazing words, Whitney. We're really excited. And in true city manager fashion, at about 4:30 this morning, I believe Chief Tuggle will share with us later, maybe, that Whitney was woken up with a fire in our town, and we were all messaged, check your email right away, and sharing along with PG&E and the power outage, and working with the city, of course the city, but working with the school district and the businesses and the members of our community. And it's just kicking off today in a true fashion of all city manager work. So thank you so much. Well, now I just want to give an opportunity to my fellow council members, if you wish to say a few words, or if you felt like you've heard enough today. Vice Mayor Pease.
We have had a lot of words, and so I just want to again say welcome and reiterate as we were going through this process, having this big net, and then each time being won over by your skills, your problem solving, but your compassion and your humor and your wit. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Marks.
Thank you. Well, this is a great occasion, and I want to say that you've come a long way in a short period of time. But the fact that we had a chance to get to know you as the interim city manager and the staff got to know you, I think was really wonderful, because we got a little forecast of the great job you're going to do. So again, congratulations.
Thank you so much. Well, now we have one more fun, exciting presentation before we get into the nitty-gritty of our agenda today. Is a really great celebration. It is Slow Transit 50th anniversary. And in a few moments, we'll call up Jennifer Rice on behalf of the Mobility Services Division. She leads that division, of course. And we'll do, I'll go ahead and read off the proclamation, and then I will meet you up front, Jennifer. So whereas public mass transportation systems provide an essential lifeline service for millions of Americans and are an important factor in reducing fossil fuel dependency and production of harmful greenhouse gas emissions. In 1971, the state of California's legislature enacted the Transportation Development Act to improve public transportation services, including the provision of funding for transit and non-transit related purposes. In 1974, based on recommendations from the Mass Transportation Committee, the Council of the City of San Luis Obispo established San Luis Obispo Slow Transit, which began service on April 1st of that year. In 1985, the city entered into the first transit service agreement with Cal Poly University, enabling students, faculty, and staff to ride slow transit buses for free, increasing ridership to and from campus and around the city. In 2023, Slow Transit introduced 2 fully electric buses, and more to come, in accordance with state mandates, which also serves as a critical component to the city achieving its goal of carbon neutrality by 2035. Whereas the mission of Slow Transit has been and continues to be to provide equitable and sustainable transportation for the city of San Luis Obispo in alignment with nationwide efforts, including Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the Department of Transportation's Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program. In 2024, the city of San Luis Obispo celebrates the 50th anniversary of Slow Transit, which provides reliable, convenient, and accessible transit for more than 500,000 passenger trips every year. So now, therefore, I, Erica A. Stewart, Mayor of the City of San Luis Obispo, on behalf of the entire City Council, proclaim August 20th, 2024 to be Slow Transit Day in San Luis Obispo.
Got it. Okay, thank you. All right, good evening, Madam Mayor and esteemed members of council. I'm Jennifer Rice. I'm the Deputy Director for Mobility Services, and I am happy to accept this proclamation tonight on behalf of Alex Fuchs, who's actually the Mobility Services business manager, and he oversees the Slow Transit program, but unfortunately he's not feeling well today. So I know if he was here, he would say that being a part of this event, of an event as momentous as Slow Transit's 50th anniversary celebration, is truly an honor. And I know he would say that because he gave me these wonderful talking points. Public transportation plays a critical role in providing access and freedom of movement for millions of Americans, and especially for people with historically disadvantaged groups. 50 years ago, City Council and our community recognized the need for local transit services and put into motion actions which led to Slow Transit's formation. Today, Council and our community continues to show their support for equitable, accessible, and convenient transit services by investing in zero-emission vehicles and in new technologies to help modernize our operations. Last year alone, Slow Transit provided over 575,000 passenger trips, and that number is growing every year. The future for Slow Transit is bright, the future for Slow Transit is electric, and the future of Slow Transit is now. On behalf of Slow Transit and the Public Works Department, thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you for sharing those great words from Mr. Fuchs. I know that your team has been doing so much extra work in these last year, so I really appreciate your department and all the great work it's been doing. I also really appreciate for the youth that the extension of the bus is for free through August 24th, this Saturday. So pass it on if you know of any youth that are still looking to ride the bus. Our exchange student did it on the second day of school, and it was very smooth. So. All right, well, next we move on to the city manager report, and then we'll go into public comment. So if you have public comment and you have not turned in your slip to the city clerk, make sure you do that now. City manager.
Thank you. Love that. Thank you. We do have a number of slides and pieces of information to go over. I think we'll try to not go on for too long. I think though part of the updates here, it's been a while since we've met, and so we want to provide an opportunity to just let everybody know about a few things going on in our community. So first, I'm sure folks have probably noticed that we've been doing maintenance on our parking garages here on Palm Street. That work continues to be underway, and we're looking forward to having that wrapped up pretty soon. We wanted to let everybody know about the upcoming temporary closures to both of the Palm Street garages, not at the same time, but in quick succession. So our 842 Palm Street structure will be closed Monday, August 26th. Between 11 p.m. and Wednesday, August 28th, will reopen at 6:30 a.m. The 919 Palm Street garage will be closed following that on Wednesday, August 28th from 7 a.m. and then reopen on Thursday, the 29th at 2 p.m. We're really trying to squeeze down the time that the garages will be closed because we know it does impact the community. We want to also let everybody know that as the work is completed, we will reopen the garages from the bottom floor up as the work is done. We're really doing completing new striping in those garages, and so we need to keep from vehicles driving over them while that work is happening. Of course, we would really advocate or recommend to people to look to do alternative transportation during those timeframes. So riding our bus, of course, riding bikes, walking, carpooling, and of course, we will maintain our 871 Marsh Street parking garage will remain open during this timeframe as well. So looking forward to having that work completed, but we wanted to make sure everyone was aware. Our notification process includes a press release, social media posts. We'll have sandwich boards out in front of the garages when they're impacted, as well as direct email notification to our permit holders, and then notification to Downtown Slow and the Chamber of Commerce for distribution to their members. So trying to get the word out to try to minimize that impact. Next, we wanted to alert everybody to some items that are occurring at the Central Coast Community Energy, or 3CE as it may be known. There's some work underway at the two different boards. Our operations board, which is made up of city managers and county CAOs that oversee operations of the agency, as well as the policy board, which is made up of our elected officials from the member agencies. An operations board meeting was held on August 14th. That was just last Wednesday. There was a recommendation forwarded from that operations board to reduce the member agencies on the board from 19 to 11. So member agencies will still remain members, but the recommendation is to kind of shrink the number of representatives on the board. That recommendation is being proposed to be moved forward to a special meeting, at least have a discussion of the policy board. We believe that meeting is scheduled to happen on August 26th. And in consideration of that kind of fast-moving policy level issue, we wanted to provide an opportunity for our council to consider what's being proposed and discuss that and potentially provide some recommendations for our representative on the policy board, or potentially for a position letter or something of that sort. And as a result, we've scheduled a special meeting of our city council for tomorrow at 5:30. We wanted to let everybody know that is coming forward. The agenda is out. There is a brief staff report kind of explaining the work that was done at the operations board and some next steps. Beyond that, the annual meeting of the board is occurring on September 18th and 19th. The policy board is scheduled to meet on the 19th, and it is possible at that time that the board could take action on this new proposal for the makeup of that board. So we wanted to just make sure folks were aware of these conversations happening, and we're, of course, anybody's open and welcome. We look forward to anybody coming to our special meeting tomorrow and to any of these other meetings of our boards. The boards meet remotely, but we have people meet in our council chamber locally. So if anybody's interested in participating in either the operations board or policy board meetings, there is an opportunity to come here and participate in public comment there. Next, speaking of our transit system, our mobility staff have been getting the word out to our local schools about opportunities for using our transit system. This includes a discussion at the Laguna Middle School orientation to promote the Laguna Tripper and K-12 discount pass. We will also be attending the SLO High School orientation to promote the K-12 discount pass as well. We're attending mission prep orientation, as well as providing pop-up opportunities after school. We will be attending Cal Poly SLO Days and presenting at 15 different events to address both new and transferring students, to make sure everybody is aware of our transit system and the opportunities that are available for use of our bus system. And then are providing digital flyers and information shared with districts and individual schools as well. Also upcoming, we have the annual SLO Transit driver education and WOW Week participation. So all of these items are all these different ways of getting the word out are occurring, and our staff is making sure to try to make sure everybody's aware of what's available through our buses. Next, we wanted to let folks know about a flood control project that is underway and will continue to be underway through September. It's kind of done in a couple of different phases. This is really an annual project that the Land Conservancy does along with our city and the County Zone 9 Flood Control District, as well as our local landowners along San Luis Creek. Phase 1 occurs from August 19th through 23rd, and that's trying to do some of the mechanical kind of removals. And then on September 16th through 17th, there will be actual spraying occurring. What's occurring is trying to remove a particularly invasive kind of bamboo-like grass species called Arundodonax. Hopefully I pronounced that second word correctly, but we just, like to call it Arundo. That's our local phrase. So it's currently growing along about 4 miles of the creek and contributes to flooding, habitat degradation for our steelhead trout, and increases fire risk. And so this work is underway to really help address our potential environmental issues as well as flooding in that area. And we wanted to make sure that folks were aware that we are doing outreach to anybody who may be encamped in that area, because it will be impactful to them. We want to make sure everybody's safe and that the work can proceed safely as well. Next, we wanted to highlight our National Night Out that occurred on August 6th. And this included our police department and fire department, participants by Highway Patrol as well, and a number of HOAs and neighborhood watch organizations. And it was really a great event with 6 different locations throughout the city, provided an opportunity for folks to come out and engage directly with our first responders and some of the equipment they have. There was, a special kind of appearance by the DeLorean, so it also features in the process. I think, I don't know which time frame it comes. Is it now? Is it later? It's all, I think. We really wanted to thank everybody for coming out, for supporting this event, and finding an opportunity to really engage not only with each other, but with our first responders, our police officers, our fire personnel, and just getting to know who's serving them and make everyone available for making that kind of personal connection as well. So thank you all for participating. We'll look forward to next year as well. Next, we wanted to remind everybody that our summer spending program is still underway. Through this program that's put on by our Office of Economic Development and Tourism, it rewards downtown patrons for every purchase they make this summer. You simply visit a participating downtown business before August 31st, scan the QR code, and that will automatically enter you to win a prize. The promotion has really been a great success so far. In the first 6 weeks of the campaign, there have been over 1,400 entries to the program, which accounts for at least 1,400 purchases made collectively at our local businesses as well. In addition, the local ads running on digital and social media have garnered hundreds of thousands of views, and many local media mentions have been published as well. And we were thrilled to see that more than half of the giveaway entries submitted so far are from residents of our own city here. We appreciate the participation in the program so far, and of course, there's still time to participate. So if anybody wants to learn more, you can head on to slowcity.org/summerspending. Next, we wanted to highlight our current application period for our DEI High Impact Grants. We're currently accepting applications. They opened on July 22nd and will close on August 30th at 5 p.m. This program is an effort to uplift and support local projects, programs, concepts, and initiatives that contribute to creating a San Luis Obispo that is welcoming, inclusive, equitable, and safe. Community members and applicable organizations can obtain more information about this program at slowcity.org/grants. And hopefully folks will go check it out. And our staff is also available and happy to answer any questions that anybody might have about the program. Highlighting a couple of different Parks and Rec programs here. We wanted to remind everybody that registration is still open for our adult softball fall leagues, which begin next week, beginning on August 26th. And have you wanted to try tennis or maybe refine your tennis skills? Classes for all ages and abilities, including private or group lessons, begin the week of September 4th. For more information on all of our fall programs, please contact our Parks and Recreation office or go to slowparksandrec.org for some more information. It's up on the screen there. Also, part of our Parks and Rec department is our public art program. Our program has selected 10 local community art renditions out of 56 submittals to be installed at our box art program upcoming very soon. A community jury helped select the art pieces, and this year we are going to be using a wrap system as opposed to directly painting onto the utility boxes. We believe this will allow for a more inclusive type of art and artists as well. And so up on the screen gives you kind of an idea of the types of art that we'll be able to see around the city. For more information on our selections and locations, as well as how to get involved in future art projects, please go to our public art webpage, again at slowparksandrec.org. And we're really excited to see these come to life throughout the city. And then finally, as the mayor mentioned, we did have an incident this morning, and I'd like to ask our Fire Chief, Todd Tuggle, to come up and give us a little rundown of the Bishop Fire, I think is the title it's been given.
That's correct.
Let us know what happened. I was telling him that I was impressed that he doesn't have like ash. He could have come in and he doesn't really smell like smoke, and so
That's why I'm 15 feet away from you. Well, thank you, City Manager, Madam Mayor, Council, staff, and the entire community. It's really an honor to stand before you, not just as your fire chief, but really to represent all of the personnel that responded today. Yes, there were firefighters out there. Yes, there was firefighters out there doing impressive things, but alongside of us were police officers, sheriff's deputies, water personnel, CAL FIRE. There's a laundry list of people that were out there this morning in the dark, doing magnificent things, letting our community know what was going on as they were trying desperately to sleep. Some of which are in this room. But I do want to take a quick second and just note that on our city manager's very first day of official work, she did get a phone call from me a little before 5 a.m., to which she answered and got some wonderful news. So I say that facetiously. So it was a little scary this morning. We did have a call come in about 4:45 this morning for a vegetation fire in between Bishop and Wilding Way. Fire was about 2 to 3 acres when our folks got there. Ended up being about 15 acres, fortunately, in the end. I'm proud to say before you today that there was no injuries, no structures even damaged, none destroyed. All of our personnel made it out, no injuries at all. We will have a patrol going on this evening, and most of the mop-up was done today to suppress any of the latent fire and the fuels that we had. So our folks did well today, and weather was not exactly in our favor, but persevered, and through a very big collective effort, we successfully were able to keep the fire out of our homes in this community. So a lot needs to be said to the folks that responded out there today. So I wanted to wanted to share just a couple of things real quick. 2 points. One is just how important the training is that our personnel go through every day. We logged about 29,000 hours of training last year just in the fire department alone. We just went through training 2 weeks ago to implement a new evacuation process with the county OES, which we unfortunately have not fully implemented. So we were able to get evacuation notices out by knocking on doors, our police officers knocking on doors. But that is another collaborative effort between multiple agencies within the city and the county. So training is essential for all the different stuff that we may respond to, and these significant incidents are just one example of why we do the training day in and day out. I want to thank you also for the support to have that training available, the equipment, and to hire incredible people throughout the city to do the work. And so today was bearing of that fruit. So thank you for that. And then the second point I want to leave not just us with in the city and our city staff and our city representatives, but the entire community, is that we live in a fire-prone community. This is the second time this area has burned just within the last 10 months. We live in a Mediterranean climate. We call this a fire-adapted climate. We have honorably kept and preserved a green area, a green belt around our city, which in the summertime turns brown. It is a beautiful, beautiful community we live in, and it is also prone to wildfire. And so we need to be aware and prepared for that wildfire that inevitably is going to hit our communities. So it's incumbent upon us as our staff, incumbent upon us as the representatives, and us as a community to be constantly prepared for that. Our website has lots of information, our Ready, Set, Go program. Be prepared. There's home hardening guidelines on there, and there is a part that we play as a community as a whole. And all of that integrates into hopefully continued success when we do inevitably see these incidents. So I thank you for the support. Thank you for this time, and I am available for any questions that you may all have.
Thank you. And for that Ready, Set, Go program, what's the actual website?
Well, it's slowcity.org, and then the fire department's subpage has preparedness information on there.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you for your team's work on this as well. I mean, it was really great to be able to see the updates that Okay, this is under control very quickly. That is amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Francis.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I spoke to earlier about some of the things that I heard from community members who were directly affected by the fire, had to be evacuated before the sun rose this morning. And I just wanted to pass on to you that the community could not have been more grateful for how everything was handled, how smooth it was, and how safe they felt in the hands of everybody who participated. So thank you so much for that. And also thank you for the message about being fire prepared. I think that's so, so important.
Thank you very much, and truly, I can't say this enough. I get to be up here as the fire chief, but it is a true team environment, not just from the city departments, but from our partners throughout the county, and not just firefighters, not just police officers, but honestly, we have one of the best water teams that I've ever been a part of, and they do a lot of work to make sure those hydrants are providing water for us, and it's like oxygen. You don't appreciate it till it's not there. Well, fortunately, we've had plenty of water, so I don't have to worry about it, but thank you.
Thank you. One more, I believe. Councilmember Marks.
Yes, I've gotten a lot of questions about, just in our little reception here, well, how did the fire start? And can you tell us what kind of inquiry is going on in that regard?
So we do not have a cause at this point, and it would be difficult for me to conjecture at this point. We have a joint team of CAL FIRE and SLO City Fire and SLO City PD that have been working since about 7:30 this morning to try and seek out both a cause and an origin. We were able to get a hold of some video evidence that hopefully will help us pin it down. We're also working with multiple partners that are helping us identify a cause, and we'll be seeking that out. So yes, we are working very diligently on that, but we do not have an answer as of right now. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager.
Thank you. Just wanted to also, of course, reiterate our thanks to our team who were there, to our chief and all of our responders who got a handle on this so quickly. It really takes a large investment to be able to bring these level of resources to bear. We have a standard of a 4-minute response time in our city, which is aggressive compared to other communities around us. And it takes a lot of investment in order to get us there. And I'd like to thank the council and all of our predecessors for their forethought and making those investments over time. And we will look to continue doing that. And just wanted to thank everyone for that thought ahead of time, and also to our team for not only sticking with the training and then deploying it and working with our partners to really keep everybody safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chief. Any other questions for the City Manager, my colleagues? All right. Well, then we'll move forward. Thank you very much for your report. We'll move forward to the public comment for items that are not on the consent agenda and not on the public hearing agenda. So I do want to read our public comment. We have been out for a bit, and sometimes people forget some of the policies and procedures that go into a city meeting. So before we get going, and this is that perfect time too, if you wished you had signed up to say something during public comment, you can still sign up right now. So we strive to have a civil meeting, and so we follow these civility guidelines. Listen first, respect different opinions, show courtesy, criticize constructively, debate the policy and not the person. We have 15 minutes for public comment, and I believe right now we have 4 public commenters still. Okay, wonderful. City Clerk, can you get us started?
Yes, our first speaker is Jeffrey Speck, then Tim Jouet, and then Tyler Corey.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Specht, lifetime resident, San Luis Obispo. What I generally speak about at these meetings is what I believe: local corruption, misuse of we the people's money, and non-transparent behavior. I'd like to start first by congratulations, ma'am, for being sworn in is our new city manager. And ma'am, you took a oath to upkeep and protect our Constitution, both state and federal. This is something that is incredible, important to me and we the people. It ensures that we're all protected, all of us. I will look forward to possibly going over policy with you, ma'am, to see to it policy coincides with Constitution, both state and federal. Something that in the past, I'm probably the biggest critic to you folks have had about what I believe Constitution not being honored and followed. But that being said, welcome aboard, ma'am. I look forward to getting together with you, meeting, and going over policy. And I would like to see a lot more change for the positive. You folks have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Tim Jouet, and then Tyler Corey, and then Shauna Stillwell.
Good evening, Mayor Stewart, Council. My name is Tim Jouet, current resident of San Luis Obispo. I'm here today as a member of the San Luis Obispo Tenants Union. So I want to thank you for your leadership and working with other members of the community to get the staff to produce the public memorandum on renter protections. I know some of us have ideas. I'm not the policy person, so I came to talk to you for another reason about that. In 2022, my family and I moved to the great state of Georgia, specifically the city of Atlanta, where I got a really nice working class job, working with a bunch of really great people I loved. My heart's still there, wish I was there. But as you know, Georgia is a right to work state, and I would say its government is pretty hostile to those who are not propertied. Yeah, it's in the South, United States, that's kind of our history. Anyways, specifically, I'm still in touch with my coworkers, several of them, and what really struck me is these are men and women that grew up in that city. I was the only person moving there as a family using some resources. We went through the whole, what's it like to find a corporate-owned apartment in the city? I mean, it's really amazing. I mean, none of the people I worked with who grew up in Atlanta live there. They've all been priced out. They don't have generational wealth. I had a 10-minute commute, I could ride my bike to work. These guys are driving 45 minutes, and what do they do when they get off work? They're driving Amazon vans and doing other things just to make ends meet, and they don't have anybody standing up for them. So going forward, as the city manager said, Slow likes to do hard things. This is gonna be a lot worse than parking, the pressure, what you're gonna get, the pushback, et cetera, if you do stand up for those who aren't the property class. San Luis Obispo, and as the city manager, congratulations, also mentioned, she used the word village. Villages aren't up for sale to the highest bidder, so thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Stewart, members of the City Council, city staff, and from the general public. My name is Tyler Quarry, and I'm a proud resident of San Luis Obispo and a member of the SLO Tenants Union. I want to begin by thanking our city staff, city council, and other folks for producing the recent public memorandum on tenant protections and renter protections, and the accompanying email blast about tenant protections in our city. In particular, I found the policy proposal regarding the requirement that tenants be notified more clearly and receive notification or relocation assistance due to renovation efforts to their dwellings to be very encouraging. Several months ago, there were many tenants in Mustang Village who were notified, in my opinion, without even remotely a good amount of notice about significant renovations that were going to happen in their studio apartments. These renovations required or included dust coming off of the ceilings, appliances being reshuffled, and serious changes to their apartments. Rather than being given relocation assistance, these residents were given gift cards. They were not given hotel vouchers. They were treated, in my opinion, very, very unfairly by the property management firm there. But with these new policy proposals, I think that there is potential for change, and I'm excited to see what can be done to prevent future mismanagement and mistreatment like that. However, I'd like to also note that I am concerned about the lack of new policy proposals potentially in regards to health and safety, such as a new mold ordinance or giving stronger requirements for exterior bolts on all rental unit doors. For me, health and safety is a cornerstone of housing, and it's a cornerstone of the human right that is housing. When I lived in Mustang Village a year and a half ago, I was a victim of unchecked mold that I wasn't even aware had developed by the end of my tenure there. If the property management firm had done their due diligence when inspecting the unit when I first got there to ensure that it was up to the right codes, I would not have been inhaling that air, and my roommate next to me would not have experienced a significant rain and flood water coming into his room for months on end with towels being given to him as a recompense for what he was going through. And so I asked that City Council direct staff to develop solutions to this particular issue and help offset the grave impact that these situations can have to the health and well-being of our community. Just about 65% of our city's residents are renters and rely on your actions to advance our standards of living. It is for these reasons we have laid out before you that we ask you to pass more robust tenant protections so that no matter where you live, who you love, who you vote for, that we all possess the right to safe, secure, and affordable housing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Our final speaker is Shauna Stillwell.
Hi, hello, Mayor Stewart, City Council members, congratulations. My name is Shauna Stillwell, and I am a member also of the San Luis Obispo Tenants Union. I want to thank city staff for producing the recent public memorandum on renters' protections and the recent email blast on tenant protections. I found the information regarding instituting local rent control ordinances very helpful. However, we believe this section lacks detail and needs to be expanded upon. I believe information regarding the growth of housing inventory in SLO was overlooked, and there were no suggestions made in order for SLO to acquire more low-income housing or prevent corporate landlords from growing their inventories. I ask that the council direct staff to develop solutions for these issues. Nearly 9 years ago, at the beginning of my recovery journey, influential leaders assured me that my personal testimony would one day change lives. Since then, my mission has been to help create a more equitable society where everyone in our community can not only survive addiction, homelessness, mental health struggles, but recover and thrive, and hopefully eradicate these societal issues. This begins with meeting the most essential needs, starting with the security of a safe and affordable home. At 16 in 1992, after becoming a homeless child, facing the world on my own with no adult supervision, I managed to secure a studio apartment in Santa Maria, paying $400 a month, a feat that is beyond impossible in today's climate. Years later, during the pandemic, I faced another housing crisis when the county deemed my fifth wheel trailer illegal, leaving me just 24 hours to vacate. Without the kindness of my landlords, my own intimate knowledge of navigating the housing system, I would have been homeless once again. Data has shown that without stable housing, it is impossible to effectively address issues like addiction, homelessness, and mental health crisis that plagues our city, our county, the state, and the nation. Without a safe place to call home, individuals cannot be expected to be able to begin their path to recovery. Recent data shows that 65% of our city's residents are renters and rely on your action in order to advance our living conditions. It is for these reasons that I ask you to pass more robust tenant protections so that no matter where we live, can I finish? What we look like, who we love, how we vote, or what health disabilities issues we face, we all possess safe and secure and affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much to our public comment speakers, and I also appreciate the emails that came in as well. So now we move forward to the consent agenda, and one of the things I always like to say for people who haven't been to a public comment or maybe a council meeting before, just want to let you know that we don't actually answer any questions on the items that are not on the agenda. So I just want to make sure you know that, not as though we're just ignoring you. So I've learned in the last year that sometimes people are surprised by that and are expecting more. So, okay, so the consent agenda, we have quite a few things on here. I wanted to check before we get going, anything to pull from the agenda. Councilmember Marks.
Nothing to pull, but I do want to say that I have to recuse myself from 5G, which is the annual special tax levy report for the Community Facilities District in San Luis Ranch, because I live there, and so I will be exiting for that item. Otherwise, I have nothing to pull. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Unless there's deliberation, I don't think you have to actually exit.
Okay.
No, just no voting on it. Thank you. Councilmember Shoresman.
Yeah, just a comment, just wanted to point out that, and thank our new member of the Cultural Heritage Committee, Ivan Simon, for filling that vacancy for us, and looking forward to having that seat filled.
Thank you, I agree. I was really excited to see that Ivan will be in this position. Councilmember Francis.
I'd like to move to approve the consent agenda. Oh, apologies.
That's okay. When it comes time, we'll definitely contact you. Okay, so far what we'll do is we'll have items 5A through 5K minus 5G, and we'll move forward on that. Is there any public comment on consent agenda items?
Yes, we have 2 speakers on item 5E.
Wonderful, thank you. I have that. Prior to public comment? Oh, so sorry, thank you. Sorry, I do have an update. I thought I was going to be saying after public comment, so I apologize. I do have a statement that I officially have to say for our new city manager. Of course, it is in the consent agenda, item 5I, which is the approval of city manager contract and appointment of city manager. If you wish to see all the details, feel free to check out that consent agenda item. But I do have to have the highlights listed in the minutes and shared publicly, which is that the resolution and contract approval provide that Whitney is appointed to the position of Whitney McDonald is appointed to the position of city manager effective August 20th, 2024, at an annual salary of $300,040 to be paid on a biweekly basis, as well as benefits, which include a cafeteria plan for health benefits. A monthly car allowance will be $300 per month, and the city will contribute 3.0% of salary to the city manager's 401A supplemental retirement plan. All other benefits for the position of city manager shall be consistent with those provided in the management resolution and further detailed as provided for in the contract of employment. I feel like I'm saying the writer to the end of a commercial. So as shared, obviously you can read all of the details in the agenda report, and we'll move back to public comment for the consent agenda. And that is for, I believe, item 5E.
Okay, first speaker is Brianna Reynolds, and then John McKenzie.
Hi, I'm Brian Reynolds, and I have horrible handwriting. That's one of those things. Very happy to be here tonight with City Council and staff, members of the audience. We love our dogs, and I'm wearing a T-shirt for the Friends of Slow City Dog Park. And John McKenzie, who will follow me, has been working on this for years. We're so happy that we're on the verge of actual going forward and putting in a perimeter fence and other amenities. There are some budget issues that we look forward to helping with by way of volunteerism and fundraising And also, I'm wearing my invisible cap as Rotary Club of San Luis Obispo president-elect. And we have very strong support from our current board and our current president, Lisa Adams. And then also myself, as I explained with Parks Director Greg Avakian, that we look forward to at least 2 years of involvement, helping the city make this park another jewel in the crown. So thank you so much for considering this, and we look forward to helping as best we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart, council members, John McKenzie, Friends of Slow City Dog Parks. I just wanted to say that Friends does fully agree with staff's recommendation to move forward with the dog park. And on behalf of many of the 13,000 dogs, they wanted to provide a big tail wag to the council for your and staff's efforts on this. We have submitted a letter with a number of comments on a number of things. But they're just wanted to say there still is more to be done, and as Brian indicated, there is outside funding sources and help that's available, and we hope that the city considers that moving forward to complete the balance of this to make for a really great signature park. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
That was our final speaker.
Great, thank you. I am excited to see the Laguna Lake Dog Park finally here. We've been talking about this for a while, as well as always looking at the historical list for the Milzak list for the historical property preservation, and always find that very interesting to see on our report. So looking forward to Councilmember Francis's official move. Oh, so sorry, Councilman Shoresman.
I just want to thank the speakers and for the engagement. I had several exchanges with these individuals, well, one of them in particular, about their offers to help with the last elements of the dog park, and I hope that there are lots of opportunities for the community to be a part of that process and help us make it a truly great amenity. I think this item gets us part of the way there, but it doesn't get us all the bells and whistles that we would probably all like to have. So looking forward to the community really having that ownership and taking the initiative to help us get the rest of the way there. And happy to second it when Councilmember Francis is done with her motion.
Perfect, thank you. And I have a feeling you have a few people up here that might be willing to help out in the volunteer sense as well. Councilmember Francis.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Shoresman, and thank you to all of the advocates who've got this across the finish line. Really appreciate all your work. I move to approve the consent agenda minus, do we have to pull that?
Minus 5G.
Minus 5G, thank you.
You're welcome. Councilmember Shoresman.
And I'll second that.
Vice Mayor Pease.
Sorry, just clarifying that we can take them all at once. It's just that when Councilmember Marks votes, she recuses from that one. I'm making eye contact with the clerk here, make sure I had it right. Okay.
Thank you for that clarification. I often forget that. Councilmember Francis.
I will revise to move to approve the consent agenda.
Great, thank you so much. City Clerk, can you have roll call?
Councilmember Francis?
Yes.
Councilmember Shoresman?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes,
Vice Mayor Pease?
except for 5G.
Yes.
Mayor Stewart?
Yes, thank you so much. Motion passes 5-0 minus the one recusal on 5G. And we will move forward to the public hearing items. I feel like we are at the fastest speed we've ever gone. I probably should knock on some wood now. Okay, sorry. So next we will have the Police Department 2023 Annual Report and the Military Equipment Use Annual Report. Those are actually two separate reports, but we're going to discuss them both today. And we'll start off with the annual report with, I believe, Chief Scott and Deputy Chief Michael. And do you have a presentation for us? Yes. Great.
Well, good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council and Madam City Manager and all of our community members here or watching on YouTube. So tonight, myself and Deputy Chief Michael will be presenting the Police Department's annual report with the recommendation to receive and file our 2023 annual report. Before I continue on, I just want to say thank you. I think our fire chief has probably stepped out to get some rest, but just a big thanks to, he's a very humble guy, but seeing himself and his team work today was very, very impressive and kept our community safe and worked, so well with the other public safety responders. So really big thanks to Chief Tuggle and his team. So I'm Rick Scott, your police chief, and every year the police department is proud to come before the city and present our crime data that compares this year with the previous year, and also provide a general update on department activities and initiatives that we've engaged in throughout the year. We're very excited to review this year's annual report, which will highlight the dedicated work by all of our staff members and the partnership with our wonderful community, improving the quality of life here in SLO and keeping everyone safe. Tonight's report, we will cover police operations, including the budget, organizational structure, programs that we have underway, and we'll also be reporting on new technology as well as an update on our staffing. And finally, we'll also be reviewing our crime statistics to see, quite frankly, just how we did as a community. Although this is technically the 2023 annual report, I'll also be giving an update on our strategic plan and what to expect from the years 24 and 25 ahead. So I know each of you are familiar with our organizational structure, but to kick off the report, I just want to give a very brief update on some exciting changes that we had this past year with our organizational structure. As you know, the department has 25 authorized full-time employees consisting of 61 sworn officers and 34 civilian or support staff. What I want to highlight is our CSOs, and we've been talking about this now for about 18 months, but I'm really excited to tell you for 2023, the expansion and now full staffing of our community service officer program is up and running. And this features 6 full-time non-sworn CSOs, as well as the 4 that cover, well, including the 4 that cover downtown and the 2 that cover the rest of the activities of the city. We haven't talked about our SET team, our special enforcement team, in some time, but I'm happy to report that team as well is now recovered and is staffed. Our SET team is very important to the operations of our department, focusing more attention on narcotics, alcohol, and tobacco violations, and as well as being available to focus on high-risk activities that may be threatening the city and our safety. The last change I want to highlight is with our deputy chief positions. This was previously our captains within the department. We have 2 of them on each side of our operation. We have changed those now to deputy chief, which we feel is more consistent with industry standards, as well as de-emphasizes the paramilitary structure of law enforcement. That change has been very well received within the department, and we feel the same as in the community. A quick glance at the 2023 budget for the police department. We had a moderate increase overall, mostly due to programmatic changes and also agreed upon increases with personnel compensation. Nearly all of the department's $21 million budget is allocated to personnel and staffing. Those expenses are $19.5 million or 93% of our total budget. The remaining 7% or $1.4 million is allocated to our non-staffing or operational costs for the department, such as contracts, equipment, and technology needs. Community engagement continues to be one of the most exciting activities that we're able to report on. Things that we like to do in the community and see people come out and meet and greet with their police officers. The other side of the equation is it allows our officers to have that positive engagement with our community and build that trust and relationships one-on-one. While community engagement is an everyday activity, that is part of what we do, the department was notably present in 25 fun events this last year in 23. Those include National Night Out, Pride in the Park, Coffee with a Cop, Juneteenth, Dia de los Muertos, Children's Day in the Plaza, and those are just to name a few, as I know that you've probably had an opportunity to see them out at these fun events. While supporting these events is important to us and to our community and providing that element of safety for the event host as well as our event goers, again, it's a real opportunity for the officers to meet and interact with the community, explore commonalities that we have, and really show people who we are behind the badge. Aside from all the fun activities, there were several community partnership opportunities, such as training that we offered to different elements of our community that focus on safety and security during critical events. The department worked very closely with schools, businesses, our faith-based organizations to review and train on lockdown procedures, active violence situations, and to best prepare our community for any type of emerging threat. We found that the best defense, of course, to crime is deterrence, and I'm happy to report that our CPTED program, that's CPTED, or Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design, is a service that we offer back to the community. It's certainly free of charge, but anybody that would like to take advantage of this program, we can connect with you and talk about how to improve your property, whether it's fencing, lighting, types of locks, or safety planning. Again, that's a service that we proudly provide to our community. Information can be found on our website. This year, we welcome some new faces in our Community Safety Advisory Council. That consists of both our PACT, our Police Advisory Committee, as well as the Round Table. Both of these groups meet periodically with the police department and provide input on the operations of the department. They're able to provide a critical voice from both our business, our faith-based, and our marginalized communities. Together, PACT and Roundtable provided great insights to the department as we navigated the creation of our 5-year strategic plan. Aside from that, they provide a great forum to have ongoing communication, exchange of ideas, and really helps us get to better policing. And so we're very grateful that partnership not only continues, but is blossoming and growing. As we near the end of the outreach portion of the presentation, I want to talk a little bit about our Community Action Team, our CAT team, as well as our CSO program. For 2023, our Community Action Team was again hard at work helping those in our community that are at risk or suffer from different types of sociological issues. And so I'm very, very happy to report that the CAT team, with just 2 people this past year, had contact with over 408 individuals in need of this critical assistance. We were able to place 3 persons in local permanent housing, as well as 6 family reunifications for individuals to move on with sheltering. We had some great plans, still have some great plans for this team to grow, and you've heard us talk about expanding this team with the assistance of the county and looking at LPTs, or licensed site techs. And so we're getting close to that being a reality and providing another layer of service to our community. One of the most, I think, impressive stats, again, with the 2 people in our CAT team this past year, 248 mental health and substance abuse disorder referrals. And so that's a remarkable number that not only looks for sheltering opportunities, but strikes at the underlying sociological issues that people suffer with in our community. Wrapping up with our community service officers, in 2023, it was a great year for this program. And again, we've talked about this for a little while now, but we're finally realizing what a full complement of officers can do. And this small team, it's a team of 6, but they're very, very active all throughout our community. And you will see them in the downtown core, most specifically, not only enforcing lower level issues, low level crimes that we have, but making those all important community connections. It's not uncommon to see our CSOs at, again, community events, but they provide security. They assist sometimes with traffic control, and then again, handling those low-level calls that they're at when they occur, because they're on foot downtown. The specially trained team focuses on making community connections. That's that's really what they specialize in. They do this in a very personal and personalized way, and making those positive contacts, not only for the business community, but also the people that visit our community and live and work here. The value of this program continues to be the one-on-one relationship building, and I think that's, we thought that would be a great idea, but seeing it actually happen is really, really encouraging and exciting. Not only are they doing great work in keeping our downtown safe and clean, but providing that interface with our community, with our downtown Chamber of Commerce and the Downtown SLO Association. As I wrap up the first portion of the presentation, I just want to remind everyone to follow us on social media and stay engaged in what's happening not only with your police department, but what's happening in your community. In 2023, we had 12,000 impressions on Instagram. I think that's good. I don't know, pretty sure. 21,000 on Facebook and Nextdoor, as well as a good presence on X and Threads. All this to say that we've had a 20% increase in our social media engagement this past year, which I know is good. And so I just want to remind all of our community to please follow us and stay engaged, not only for important, critical information that we push out from time to time, but also need to know and feel-good information that we like to push out as well. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Deputy Chief Michael to take a deep dive into the crime stats for 2023 and hear about the good news we have for our community.
Thank you, Chief. Mayor, City Council members, thank you for having me again. I don't think you had a choice, but we're here. So I get the exciting stuff. Can I get the clicker from you? Thank you. Statistics. I know we're riveted right now, but what I picked up on what our wonderful city manager said earlier, it's messy but beautiful, and it really is. I have we've worked very hard as a police department this past year for the city to really impact crime in a positive way. And as you can see from the Part 1 crimes we're highlighting here, which Part 1 crimes, just to explain a little bit, are broken down between violent crimes and property crimes. Homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, commercial burglary, residential burglary, theft from vehicles, stolen vehicles, general theft. Like I said, it resonated. Ugly, but beautiful. We've got a 24% reduction overall in Part 1 crimes, which is fantastic. And that's just a true thanks to the hard work that we've done as a city as a whole. But I also think as I've analyzed this and I've looked at it and I say, why? Why is this happening? Chief touched on it earlier. Our staffing has gotten back to where we're getting almost fully staffed. I truly feel like personnel on the street dealing with this firsthand, deterring crime, and being able to get our set team out there and intervening when we know that people that want to do bad things are out there, or just being a presence in the neighborhoods. These are types of things that have impacted this. So I truly think staffing has made a big impact. Now, when it comes to police work, everybody knows calls for service. Those are the things that stand out, correct? But we are really busy just across the board, behind the scenes. I mean, really, we can't do this without our records department. As you can see, they've had an increase in 2023 in processing reports and citations. On public records requests, they're continually going up. Our property and evidence, I mean, every time we deal with somebody, we have to either recover property or release property, and we're doing a lot of that. And then our detective bureau, who really digs into some of our more serious crimes, their signed caseload is been driven up. But again, I think all these things are shown that this is what we're doing, the work we're doing to reduce crime. Speaking of calls for service, we are, even though it's one part of what we do, we're still sitting here at a three-year all-time high. Our calls for service keep increasing. And our staffing is staying about the same as we've had for 15 years. So we're getting more calls, but it just is showing the dedication and what our officers are doing out there, and our non-sworn staff and everybody to try to keep up with the ever-growing calls in the city that's going on. But on a positive note there, the chief did mention, and we did increase our community service officers by 4, which, if you haven't noticed, and I'm shocked if you haven't, has made a huge impact to our city. I mean, they've been dedicated to our downtown core, those 4 extra community service officers, and made a great impact. So we can't talk about SLO without traffic. It's always on the top of our mind, top of my mind. I'm really, we push hard. We try to come up with programs. We try to do things, keep our traffic division staffed so that we can make an impact on the traffic issues we have in the city. I mean, admittedly so, we have them. But have we made an impact? Yes. We see a great reduction in many areas and not so in other areas. But we are out there educating and enforcing. If you can see our enforcement side, we've got a 21% increase in our enforcement, but our education, where those traffic warnings come in, 36% increase. So we try to strike a good balance on how we're educating and enforcing out there to drive down some of these statistics. Also, we were lucky enough, I mean, we've been very lucky for years to get the Office of Traffic Safety grant every year. It allows us to spend some extra money to run special programs, which are saturation patrols for DUIs or for bicycle ped issues or for distracted driving or driver education. So we have a great relationship with the state. They keep giving us this, I think, because we're very successful with it. So let's talk a little bit about what we're doing to stay better, up with the times, engage with our community when it comes to people that are in crisis, because who gets called when we go out? The police, most times. And we need to do better as a whole, as police work across the nation and dealing with people in crisis. And that's our goal, and that's what we've been doing. Chief has a grand goal that we're chipping away at to get everybody that is in the field staff with 40 hours of crisis intervention training by next year. Right now, we have 31 employees with that 40-hour mark, but every one of our field staff has 8 to 16 hours at least. So we're doing well on this goal. It's super important to us, and we're going to keep chipping away. Noise. I know none of us hear about this ever. But if you look at our graph and what we're doing, we are actually doing really well. And I truly think our noise reductions, as you can see, are continuing to decline, is because we've had a stronger enforcement with policies, and we've made some good positive changes, I think, that help get our community engaged and feel like they're supported in us dealing better with some of our noise issues that we have. So I think we're going to see this continue to get better. Technology. We need to do things smarter, and I think technology, when we leverage technology, we can do that. So we've implemented a couple programs this last year that I think really have highlighted just how we're going to do smarter policing and also be more transparent and have the community have a say in how we do our policing. The first thing we introduced this last year is a thing called Resource Router. And what Resource Router is, a software that takes all that Crime One data I talked about earlier, and it puts it into the system, and it sorts out where in the city we can better police with that Crime One data. So it creates these boxes around the city where it directs officers to do directed patrol and spend time in those boxes to not only deter crime, but we've actually had success in actually on-siting crime while we're in those boxes. So we just rolled this out. We're learning about it. We're still growing with this program, but so far it's been a great success. The next thing we did is Spider Tech. What this is that's that transparent part. We look for feedback from the community. So every time we go on a call, that community member that we've gone on the call for has the opportunity through a text message to give us feedback. They get a questionnaire, and they can fill out as much or as little as they want to, and it gives us feedback on how we're doing, how safe they feel in the city, how our dispatch did, how our police department did, a lot of different aspects, and we gain a lot, and there's some free text in there too. So I look at this daily. I know the chief does. We all do, because it's very important to us that we are serving our community how they feel we should be serving them. And we've got some great results. We had 90% of the respondents rated us very satisfied. So I'm pretty proud of that. I expect big things next year to keep this going. Chief touched on this earlier, how our staffing is rising. I keep talking about staffing because staffing is equaling us doing better when it comes to combating crime and getting people on the street. So as you can see, we only had a 10% employee vacancy rate in 2023, which is fantastic. For years, we haven't seen that, and we're getting better here in 2024 even. We had 5 staff promotions, which is great for retention, because when we have upward and we have movement in the department, people want to stay. If you have stagnant, people tend to look elsewhere. But we have a great department. We are drawing great talent from all over the place, even locally. People want to come here because we're a great department, we're a great city to work for. So you can see we hired 13 new employees. And officer wellness. This is so important because we have to have not just happy, but we have to have healthy employees. And so we have 2 programs that we have, one of which you've heard many times, I'm sure before, is our really robust peer support program. But why I highlight that about our officer wellness in 2023, that program just keeps getting better, and we keep getting better services to help our officers. We look for different ways to keep them mentally well and physically well. And we got a BSCC grant this last year of about $42,000 to help us with officer wellness, which we applied some of it to peer support training to get them better trained on helping our officers. We also applied some of that money to refurbish and remodel our gym. I know you think, what's gym have to do with officer wellness? But when you're healthy and physically fit, you feel mentally fit too. And then, the Counseling Team International is some group we've contracted with this last year, where our officers can have free services to get counseling as they feel needed, which is huge. And I know a lot of us need it, and we take advantage of it, and it's very important.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Michael. We talked a lot about staffing, and getting employees here, joining our team is one thing, keeping them is another. We're doing good in that regard. The data doesn't show necessarily the retention rate, but you can see as the staffing is growing, that's a direct reflection of people wanting to be here and wanting to stay here, which we're very, very excited about as a city organization. We feel that happy, healthy employees give the best service, and we're seeing that actually come to fruition in the departments. That's very exciting. Looking at the strategic plan, although the plan officially kicked off this year in April, I'm very excited to share some updates with you now that I have this opportunity to talk about what's going on. So the plan is taken shape and is now operationalized. Looking at our vision and our purpose, during the research and development of the strategic plan, we created a new vision and purpose for the police department. Our vision is a community partnership built on trust, focused on safety and the shared values to ensure slow quality of life. And our purpose is to safeguard our community from harm by reducing crime and ensuring the dignity, equity, and justice for all that we serve. And we talk a lot about harm reduction and harm reduction programs and community engagement and better outcomes focused on the quality of life. And I really feel, and I'm now seeing, that this vision and purpose is capturing these values, and that we're able to provide a commitment to our community, a promise to our community that we are going and we are doing these things, and that we welcome the accountability to make these things happen. You might recall from our study session back with council that we demonstrated the plan. We have 6 overarching goals and 17 objectives and many, many action items that support those objectives. The foundational goals, service to the community, community engagement, diversity, equity and inclusion, recruitment and retention, health and wellness, and equipment and infrastructure. Currently, we are about 8% into the plan. Most of that time has been devoted to setting up our internal systems, our tracking systems, and also signing up personnel to take on these many, many work items to be completed over the next 5 years. I'm very happy to share that there is an abundance of excitement around the plan and that we have people volunteering for things. There's volunteering and there's voluntold. And I'm very happy to tell you that we have a lot of people volunteering for things to step up and be part of this really, really wonderful plan. And so progress is underway, and we're looking forward to showing those statistics at our next time in front of council. So goal 6 of our strategic plan is infrastructure, and the new building at 1106 Walnut is part of that plan. And so the last item I want to mention tonight is giving you an update on 1106 Walnut, which is the police administration's building. This 11,000 square foot building will offer future relief from the space constraints that we have with our current police facility. The current refit involves the design and construction of fencing to improve the building's security, some technical infrastructure so that employees can work with their computer systems inside the building, as well as subdividing some of the open space for dedicated work areas. Updating the interior space is set to occur at the first of the new year, with anticipated move-in a few months later in 2025. I'm very much looking forward to giving each one of you a tour of the new facility and to share the vision that we have for this building. So in closing, this remains an exciting time for law enforcement for all the good reasons that we're here. Not only for the changes that we're undertaking, but the incredible department staff that we have out there doing this really difficult work every day. They do this work with compassion and professionalism, individually seeking best outcomes in whatever the call may be. And I'm very, very proud to say that not only the data, but the response from our community is reflecting that that is actually occurring. I'm very fortunate to lead this amazing team and grateful to our council and to all of our community for the trust that you've placed in the police department, not only to do hard things, as our city manager mentioned, but to do these hard things well in a quality way. So with that concludes the department's presentation, and recommendation at this time is to receive and file the 2023 Police Department Annual Report, and we are available to you for discussion.
Great, thank you, and thank you for the thorough report. I know that for some of the questions I asked you, Chief, ahead of time, you answered some of those, so I look forward to kind of expanding on those here, and open to my colleagues. Councilmember Francis.
Yes, thank you so much for that presentation. I really appreciated diving into the impressive drop in the crime statistics in almost all the categories. That was really great to see. And I heard you attribute this to better staffing last year. And I was wondering if you saw a correlation between that drop in crime and a particular program or staffing decision that was made, or just to having more, people out there in the community in general.
Thank you, Councilmember, for the question. I think the best way to answer that, because crime stats are finicky and they're tough to sometimes interpret. But what I will say is we know that prevention goes a long way. Most of the crimes that occur in our community, especially when you talk about property crimes, are crimes of opportunity or are nuisance-based activity. And so having, again, correlating this back to staffing, having a greater presence, not only in our downtown core where we know we have things happen, but just having more officers on staff to, one, answer calls for service, we know that's important, but two, providing that time for them to proactively patrol. If you want to know the problems in the city, ask a neighborhood officer. They can tell you what's happening in their neighborhood. And when they have the time to focus to go out and address those problems, we see real results. So it's kind of hard to quantify the absence of something, but I will definitely say being proactive and that preventative element certainly is reflected here.
Thank you for that. And this might be another hard to quantify one, but I've heard you speak a lot about the importance of the peer support and the officer wellness realm. And I was wondering if we have any data about how this program has impacted our officers, or how we would kind of measure that over time, if that was something that was possible to measure.
Thank you for that question. And probably even more difficult to quantify than crime. What I will tell you is the results in in people staying in our organization and being happy and being healthy and seeing that firsthand. So I know it's working. The challenge is a lot of the programs that we offer, they're anonymous to a great degree. So we as command staff, I don't know necessarily who's participating in those programs. We have city EAP, we have our contract service providers, and anonymity is very, very important so people feel comfortable taking advantage of those programs. I hear people taking advantage of those programs, and they tell me that they're doing it. So having people in our staff being able to freely talk about utilizing these services, not only for themselves, but their family, I know it's working. I just can't give you the numbers of how much we're utilizing it. But I hope that that's something we're able to kind of drill down for you in the future.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that's becoming part of the culture to talk about that. It's really awesome. I have a few more questions. I'm going to turn to my colleagues and see if they have the same ones.
Sounds good. Thank you. Councilmember Schwarzman.
Ooh, that's okay. Thank you for the great report, and thank you to you and the team for everything that was done this morning at Dark 30 to help keep all of our neighborhoods safe with the fire. And I saw a couple of the CSOs out on Bishop Street this morning when I was out walking around. So I appreciate that they were there kind of trying to turn people away that didn't need to be close to the activity. So it was great to see them out there.
Thank you.
Couple of questions were about the noise. First question about the noise data. As you mentioned, we hear a lot about neighborhood noise and disturbances from parties and such. And looking at the table, just found it interesting and wondered if you had any explanations or thoughts about how 2019 seemed to be a particularly quiet year, and then it went back up to kind of what it had been the few previous years. And it, as you noted, it has been going down sort of slowly since then. Do you have any thoughts about that, that dip and where we are in relation to that?
Yeah, so I drilled down on that because it was interesting to me looking at it. I thought, okay, what caused this dip? And if you can kind of see that trend, that is the year before COVID hit. And we had been, all of that education and outreach and just enforcement had just really, we were on a great trend and we were hitting it. And then we now all of a sudden, we went indoors and then everything became quiet. So then at that point, I think we had a little bit of a spike there because people weren't used to, we get super quiet and all of a sudden you hear anything and it's now a noise problem, right? So anecdotally looking at it, I think that's really what I discovered looking at is that if we didn't have COVID, I think you would have still seen that trend keep going. But now we're back to getting into that education phase and enforcement phase and those types of things to get that trend to start going down again.
Okay, makes sense. Wondered, you mentioned the special enforcement teams and the positive impact that being able, it sounds like, to staff those teams fully again have made on the Part 1 crime rates. And just wondering if you could explain how that correlation works and maybe give a couple examples if you have any.
Yeah, I can talk about it. So having this team, when we see, I'll give you an example, when we start to see burglaries of some sort, like a good example, because you want one, is that when we had these laundry room break-ins, they start prying open change boxes. So we looked to our special enforcement team to go out and they can do several things. They can do surveillance. They can actually go drill down on, because they're detectives, so they look at who's in jail, who's out of jail, who just got out of jail, what's their history, and then they can now go do some surveillance on those people and start to look at that. So they're just a great tool in our toolbox that we can kind of just maneuver in a way that we can attack these problems. And that's why we call them the special enforcement team, because we can deal with the special problems. So that's just one example. But yeah, we do weekly meetings with them. We do it with my patrol lieutenants. They're in there, my detective bureau. And as we start to see these trends, we think, okay, where does this fit with? And a lot of times we look to the special enforcement team going, okay, this is going to start with you. Let's figure out where this problem is starting and what can you do to help alleviate it. And a lot of times it just is going out and turning over rocks and talking to the known offenders and looking to see who's out. So yeah, they're really good at that.
Thank you, because a special enforcement team is sort of a fancy sounding term, but I don't think most of us necessarily know exactly what it means. So thank you for that. My last question is about the some of the crime statistics, and I did notice the numbers are small, thankfully, but they are unfortunately bigger in the last year or so, the number of bicycle collisions and fatalities. And so although an overall small percentage of our crime in general, you know, when somebody dies, that's not good for our community. So, and I know there are lots and lots of pieces besides just enforcement and the police role that go into stopping people from being killed while they're walking and biking. But just wondering if you have any ideas of things that we can do to kind of continue to work on our, from a police standpoint, continue to work on our Vision Zero and try and reduce those numbers.
Thank you for that question. And those, of all the stats that we provide, those are the most difficult because, you know, we do celebrate reductions and a lot of the work is reflected there. But any fatality is we take that personally and look for ways to prevent that from occurring in the future. We are Vision Zero City, so we're working very hard to not have serious crashes in our community, not have injury crashes, and certainly not have fatalities, regardless if you're in a vehicle, on a bike, or pedestrian. I think to answer your question, things that we can do, and Deputy Chief Michael spoke to educational opportunities, and that comes in a wide array of flavors. So receiving a citation is definitely an educational opportunity. I think we would all agree. Having a chat on the roadside in lieu of a citation in a form of a warning is probably sometimes equally effective. But also proactive education, and it's looking for ways to partner with our community members such as Bike County Slow and groups like that to partner with them in broadening our voice and to educate in a setting that's not, you know, adversarial on the side of the road, where we can talk just like you and I are talking about traffic safety and awareness. And so looking for those opportunities, and we've had some of those meetings already, but we're looking forward to operationalizing that and having more community educational activities. I think providing safety equipment is very important. We had a generous grant come from our SCLC that we bought bike safety equipment, and we're passing that out to our community. That also gets people's attention and helps think twice. The last piece of that is our grants. And so this year, this upcoming year is, I believe, the most that we've ever been able to get in traffic safety grants, and continuing to do more operations. Even when staffing was as difficult as it was, we were still able to prioritize road safety by utilizing those grants. And so we're going to continue to do that as much as we're able to do that. But I think, again, to achieve our goals, we're going to have, you know, that community partnership, and we just, you know, don't have enough officers to pull everybody over that we see. So we want people to take that responsibility and slow down and look out for their neighbors. I think as a whole, the city's doing a very good job on the engineering side, and we have a great partnership with traffic and engineering, identifying those troubled spots in the community that we can not only solve with extra enforcement, that's a temporary solution, but solve with an engineering solution. And I see that the city is very responsive in doing that. So all the pieces are in place to have better results. We just have to continue to work hard and be innovative.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Pease.
Thank you. Thanks for the report. It's great to have the breadth of the operations all together at once. My question is about the trends and on the noise. We get many years, I think 10-ish years of the data, but on the other crime statistics is just 2 years. And so I'm wondering if that was, I know that we have been doing that all along, and I'm just thinking, as Chief noted, stats are finicky, and so some years it's gonna not look good, and we'll be like, well, but over the course of, 10 years. So I'm wondering if you can talk about why it's set up in kind of just the 2 years, and what would be the potential for, in the future, having more reporting years for these kinds of data points.
Sure. In looking deeper into, the crime, we've had the same RMS data system for 20 years. And so we have, very robust data. Going along with, being stats are finicky, crime trends change dramatically. And so while, we're certainly high-fiving the reduction in vehicle, stolen vehicles, those things change very rapidly. And so having, a historical reference of necessarily that crime it's helpful for what we do, but it's not always the best resource. And Resource Router actually looks in a live environment and is giving actionable intelligence to our officers about where to go and when to be there. That's why we think programs like that we see as the future. However, looking at comparisons, I can just say the year before we were up 11%. And so last year wasn't a great year because we did see some of those metrics go in the wrong direction. But still, if we had to do a 5-year or even deeper comparison with a 24% reduction, I know we're still in positive, certainly. But I think that's certain, we could look at with a crime analyst. We have a crime analyst that's employed with the department to go over those crime trends. But I think that's why you don't typically see them demonstrated, because we focus on shorter narrows of operational periods.
So just making sure that I get this right, is that, so for a particular type of crime, there might be a global influence on car thefts or violent crimes or whatever, and so it's not necessarily as relevant? Or is it more of a, versus just a challenge in collecting the data and making sure we're comparing apples to apples?
Yeah, I'll use catalytic converter thefts as a good example. So last year, for the past really 2 years, that's been essentially one of our #1 property theft items. They're very, very expensive. They're hard to replace, and we were getting hit significantly with cat thefts. There were some legislative changes that made that more difficult for resellers to accept that material, and so the profit for someone going out and stealing those things essentially dried up. The other part of the equation is that's really not a homegrown activity. We would have theft rings come into town from other parts. We would see 6 to 8 incidents, and they would come back, the next couple of days and do it again. So those kind of crime activities are very cyclical and very difficult to, predict or even show a relevance to our local suppression activities.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Can I just add on to that real quick? So I'm envisioning the footnotes would have to be so long on this table that it may be confusing. Is that what I'm kind of hearing?
Yes, but it's more so the law of averages, and the further you look, the less significant the changes are, because it's going to flatten out, and you're going to see little bumps as you go along the way, but it's going to be very hard to pinpoint what that little blip meant 5 and 6 years ago, and is it relevant? And so that's why we tend to focus on kind of the last 12 months, and to show us, one, any important trends that we need to jump on now. Is there a lack of resources? Do we need to develop a program? Do we need to react quickly to impact this particular crime?
Perfect, thank you so much. Councilmember Marks.
Thank you. This is a really interesting report. I want to thank you very much for all this information. I'm really happy to hear that you have this goal of 40 hours with CIT training for all of your employees. I think that's a wonderful goal, and I'm curious about the training because when I look at the behavioral traits that you're trying to support, like emotional intelligence, ethics, de-escalation. This is just what I picked up from reading your report, and I'd like to hear more about how you actually know whether the training is effective. Are there like quizzes at the end, or do you just have to observe an officer's behavior and say, well, you had 20 hours of training in this, but you're doing that, and so I'm not quite sure how does it work? Do you end up going into discipline, or do you just make the person do the training over and over again, or do you grade them? I don't know. How does all that work?
I will pass to Deputy Chief Michael and explain how our post standards, what differentiates between post class versus a non-post class and why that's an important distinction.
So I think you got, excuse me, there's a, kind of guess two parts to your question. How do we see if it clicked? And then why are we going for the 40 hours or what we're doing? Post, which is the standards and training for the state, only requires 8 hours. And so everybody comes to us out of the academy with 8 hours. But that is just scratching the surface. Now, we get up to that 40-hour mark and some things start to stick. And so the way we don't test, there's no test, there's no any of that. The test is their day-to-day dealings in the street. And it's really up to their partners, their supervisors, our review of if it turns into, unfortunately, like a use of force or something, our review of that, or just this simple auditing of maybe body camera footage on this particular incident or a complaint or what have you. Those are our grades. And so that's how we look at it. And do we look, did they do it right? Did they employ these types of tactics? Do they need remedial training? Because yeah, sometimes if they do it wrong, we do get remedial training. Was it a mistake that was egregious enough that is there going to be discipline behind it, or is there going to be? So yeah, so we look at it. You don't just get the training and they're like, okay, you're good. It's you get the training and we watch it, and we track it, and we make sure that our officers out there in the street and our CSOs, anybody on the field staff, are applying these things appropriately, because you hit a key word, de-escalation. I mean, that's really the key. That's how we don't go that wrong way. We de-escalate it through our words, through our actions, through how we interact with you, through how we read your body language and what you're doing. And if we see one of our field staff that's not reading that correctly, we try to stop that before it becomes a problem.
I'll also add, if I may, the training curriculum itself is post-verified, and so it's taught by post instructors, and you're also evaluated. So you have to be in class when class begins. You're also assessed by the instructors. So you could technically, not pass the training, but it's set up to, to pass and make sure that you've retained the information.
Oh, thank you very much. And I have one more question, pretty simple. And I really think it's great about the roundtable and the other community groups that you have. And I'm just curious, how do people join? We have like an advisory body process, and it's a pretty elaborate, there's an application process and all this. So I'm just curious, how would someone out in the public who wanted to be part of your roundtable or another community group, how would they be able to explore that?
Sure. We have that information out on our website. If anybody wants to join, they can just message myself or the department and indicate that they would like to be considered, and certainly welcome to evaluate and have them participate.
And then do you personally select these people, or do you have a committee, or how does that work?
The group themselves will select, and so a name will be floated, and they'll bring them on. They're not my groups. It belongs to the community, so they'll bring them on in.
That's really interesting. So thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you. I want to go back to the crisis intervention training. I know that you shared with me in our meeting why only 30% or why only 31 people, and you shared as far as the county. Could you go into a little bit as far as who provides that CIT or crisis intervention training, and how often, and why that year goal is potential?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's highly specialized training, and in fact, when we initiated this directive, we looked at actually training our own people to conduct the training, train the trainers, so to speak, because we knew we had a lot of work to do. However, the requirement was just too significant, and so the only other opportunity in town is through the Sheriff's Office. They have highly qualified people that have gone through the program and that can offer that training out to the county agencies, and so we utilize the county. There's only so many seats available in those classes, and they do fill up, and it can only be done so many times a year because they also have collateral duties as well. And so every single class, we put as many people that we can spare into each one of those sessions to make sure that they get that training in that setting, and that it gets reported back to post. So looking ahead at the remainder of people that we have, not only the turnover that we've gone through ourselves, we think within the next 12 months we should be able to accomplish that objective.
Great, thank you. And with the SEPTED, the security, reviewing people's security opportunities on their property, is that only for business or residential both? I forget.
SEPTED is open to anybody, and so anybody that would like to speak to an officer about any safety concerns that they may have on their property, we can certainly, and again, that's not just an officer, those officers have received specialized training to conduct these security surveys and provide input on how to improve safety and security for your home.
Great, thank you. And I know that we talk about this ad nauseum, but I have to ask you, back to noise and code enforcement, which somehow touches you at different times. What does the outreach look like with Cuesta and Cal Poly for their education, since we get a new batch of, 4,000 to 6,000 people every year coming into our community?
So we do have a lot of touch points with them. We start at the beginning of every school year. They have their welcoming week of welcome. Sorry, thank you. And we meet with the different student groups and fraternities and sororities, and we collaborate with Cuesta and Cal Poly. We also have this discussion. We have a group, SCLC, which I know you're all familiar with. That's an opportunity to have these student groups that's led by student groups come together and talk about these issues. So we look for any opportunity, especially when we're going to introduce new initiatives. For example, last year when we introduced the expanded safety enhancement zone, myself personally and Christine Wallace went and met with every student group just to explain the changes and to help them understand what we're trying to accomplish. So on those types of issues, we look for those opportunities to have that personal reach and touch point.
Great, thank you. And then lastly, with the neighborhoods, is there a correlation between the neighborhoods and our economic development boundary lines and the neighborhoods that the police officers are assigned to, or are those completely separate? That might be a Greg or Whitney question as well, but I think Mr. Herman?
We're going to phone a friend here.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and council members. Happy to answer that. They're different. So the work that we're doing in economic development as it relates to neighborhoods is really focusing on business areas, so business districts in the city, which are smaller geographic areas within individual neighborhoods.
Great, thank you so much. That is all the questions I have. And did you still have a question, Councilmember Francis? Okay, great. Well, thank you for providing that great report. And before we head into the military equipment, I'm going to send us on a 10-minute bio break. Not yet. We'll do the public comment at the end because it's still one agenda item. Thank you so much. See you in 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Well, thanks everyone for taking a quick break and enjoying some time. We'll move back to the Military Equipment Use Annual Report for 2023. Chief Scott.
Well, good evening again, Madam Mayor, members of council. Tonight, we're going to present to you our 2023 Military Equipment Use Annual Report. Per the law, this is it brought to you to show what the inventory that we have, as well as talk about any changes that we have in our equipment. The recommendation tonight is to also receive and file tonight's report. And per the law, this public hearing has been advertised for tonight's meeting, both on the department's webpage, as well as through social media, and the report has been made public. So a little background on 481, or our military equipment use law. It was created for the purpose of greater transparency and accountability for law enforcement. Assembly Bill 481 regulates the use of military equipment by police. Per the law, we came before council back in 2022 with a comprehensive ordinance regulating the approval and reporting of all military equipment in the department's inventory. The last report to council covered April of 2022 through December of 2022, as it was newly enacted legislation at the time. This year's report, we're able to actually see a whole year, so you're going to get to see a full 12-month or calendar year report. And then all the future reports moving forward will be from January through December, as it is tonight. As previously mentioned, as we've gone through the ordinance process and again our last year report, none of the department's weapons that we use actually come from the U.S. military, nor military suppliers or contractors. The equipment most all the equipment's available to citizens through the regular means that they would procure things through, either the web or in-person sales. Deputy Chief Amoroso will now present the data that's collected under our ordinance and talk about the current inventory and any proposed items for your consideration.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. Thank you for allowing us to present the 481 annual report. This will be a relatively short report covering our use of military equipment and inventories for 2023. So a little bit on the program statistics. As Chief mentioned, we're covering the entire year. So we had just under 36,000 calls for service in San Luis Obispo in 2023. Total deployed calls for service where military equipment was used was 21 incidents. So it's 0.06%. So extrapolating on 99.94% of calls that we go on, this equipment is not being used. There are a couple of requirements in AB 481 that talks about either summary of any complaints. Per the government code, the department did not receive any complaints regarding use of military equipment during this reporting period, and no policy violations were noted. We have a slide here that covers ongoing costs. This is part of what we track and look at when we are looking at our military equipment use, and certainly making sure that our department budget can sustain not only the purchase of a piece of equipment, but can we afford to continue to maintain it. So as you see going down the list, one of the more expensive items is our Bearcat, which is our armored vehicle. It's used for both, high-risk operations, rescue operations, et cetera, but it is a vehicle, so it's subject to oil changes, engine issues, tires, et cetera. Our fleet does an excellent job maintaining it, but that is one of the more higher annual costs, as well as our incident command post. Going down the list, some of the other items, they're grouped together. So most of these items, if they're weapons, generally the annual maintenance is in cleaning. Sometimes it's maintaining small springs and other things of that nature. Ammunition obviously is our largest expense. And this ensures both that, that we have ammunition on hand for range training and qualifications, as well as officer allotments that are due per our MOU agreements. You can see down the list here other munitions, small amounts, generally relating to replacement of munitions, either whether it's expiration or used in training, et cetera. And then finally, for drones, the cost you see there is generally reflective of battery replacements. As they're lithium batteries, over time they degrade, and so we generally are on a replacement cycle for the batteries. The drones will generally last longer than the set of batteries that they come with, and we have multiple batteries that allows us to fly almost indefinitely with quick battery changes for long operations, but that does require costs to maintain and replace. Looking at our military equipment use for 2023, I've grouped it together into the different categories here. So for unmanned aerial vehicle, which is really drones, a fancy way of saying it, they were used on 4 occasions for protests or rally observations, scene documentation in 3 serious or fatal traffic collisions, used for St. Friday's Day on observations. You probably all saw many of those videos. 3 suspect searches for felonies. Drones are something that we can quickly deploy. We've gotten better as we've gotten more officers certified to fly, so that they can quickly get them up if we have, bless you, if we had a search for a particular individual. For instance, missing child. The next, we had 1 case of use of a drone helping look aerial for missing child, 1 SWAT incident for a felony search warrant service, and 2 fleeing suspect searches. Incidentally, I wanted to note some of these categories, you may see the same description because multiple pieces of equipment might have gone out on 1 incident. And so there's going to be a couple of examples here where you're going to see we had multiple items on the same incident. So for the robot, we had a couple of activations. One was an attempted murder shooting scene where the robot was able to clear the inside of a residence, and an armed suspect arrest and search warrant service. And again, most of the use of that robot is to go ahead and forward clear a room before we have to send officers in so that we can get eyes in that room. It can open doors, move things out of the way, and give us a view before someone has to round a corner and put themselves at risk. The Bearcat armored vehicle, we had 4 uses. If you remember back in January 2023, that was heavy rains. We had high water evacuation. The Bearcat is a 4-wheel drive, has a little higher clearance. It has skids on the outside. So it actually was used to rescue several motorists that were stranded in high water that had to be taken out of their car and directly into that vehicle. Was used on a call of shots fired in a residence, and again at the attempted murder shooting scene as mentioned, and the armed suspect arrest and search warrant service. The mobile incident command vehicle, this is our trailer that is pulled and used as a mobile incident command. Generally, if you see an incident where the Bearcat is used, that mobile incident command post is also going to be out there. So you're going to see 3 of those same incidents there. Our 40 millimeter less lethal munitions, this is a tool that's used generally a sponge round, if you would call it that, less lethal round that's used. 4 deployments. The first was on a kidnapping false imprisonment suspect. The second was on a suspect that was under the influence and assaulting a peace officer. The third was a disorderly subject who was actively throwing rocks down onto the vehicles at the freeway, which can be extremely dangerous at 70 miles an hour. And finally, a disorderly suspect who had a knife in their possession. And then finally, we had 1 pepper ball deployment of the same disorderly suspect holding a knife. I'll pass it back to Chief Scott.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Amoroso. And in conclusion, we trust that tonight's report demonstrates that the department continues to maintain its inventory safely, responsibly, and in good standing. There's no significant changes this year to our inventory except for a minor increase in similar equipment that we currently possess. There's no items recommended for removal from the current inventory as our equipment was effectively utilized this last year to take care of any threats to our community safely and, again, responsibly. Of the items of equipment deployed in 2023, each were consistent with our de-escalation policies and reporting, as well as our thorough review that we conduct after each incident. So with that, I will go ahead and ask for our recommendation is that council receive and file the 2023 Police Department's Military Equipment Use Annual Report, and myself and Deputy Chief Amoroso are available for discussion.
Great, thank you so much, and also thank you for the agenda correspondence that answered quite a few of our questions ahead of time. Councilmember Shorsman.
Yeah, thank you again. Just to ditto what the mayor said, I submitted several questions to you in advance and appreciate those answers in writing so the community can go back and look at them as well. The one question that I had based on just your presentation and the instances when the equipment's been used, just a clarification, were all of the instances where they were used, where all the equipment was used, were they all within the city limits of SLO, or were they used in mutual aid situations as well? And are those mutual aid situations counted, I guess, in the examples that you provided?
That's a good question. Thank you, Councilmember. And you can turn your mic on because you're next. What I will say as we set up that response is, as you know, we do get called out for mutual aid from our partner agencies throughout the county and sometimes beyond. The second part of that is we are the largest contributor to our regional SWAT team. And so much of the equipment that we discussed here doesn't go out in patrol. This is SWAT-based, high-risk activity. And so I'll turn it back over to Deputy Chief Amoroso if he has more stats on where that use was in relation to our day-to-day activities.
Thanks, Chief. To answer your question, yes, it was all used in San Luis Obispo. If we had gone on a SWAT call in another city and let's say a officer on the SWAT team that works for the San Luis Obispo Police Department were to deploy, a weapon, let's say they use a 40 millimeter round on a suspect, that we would still report that. So it would be reported either way, but in this case, all of those incidents were in the city of San Luis Obispo.
Okay, so just to clarify, the 21 incidents, they were all in SLO in this particular year?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Pease.
Thank you, and I do appreciate this report and how judiciously all the equipment is used in that way, and it seems encouragingly low, and I'm just wondering if you have any information about statewide. Is this, where are we landing as a department kind of compared to others? Is this a pretty typical inventory of materials, frequency of use? Where do you see us landing within consideration of other departments across the state?
Thank you, Councilmember. I haven't seen any statewide data. Again, the legislation, the law is still relatively new. So I assume as agencies continue to report, eventually we'll see a repository and hopefully a report out on some of those statistics. I will say from having conversations with our regional chiefs, our usage is consistent with what they're seeing proportionally across the county. So I feel like we're in line with at least our region, but I haven't seen anything outside, at least statewide.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Francis.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Deputy Chief, for that report. We often get a lot of questions from the community about how the type of military equipment is going to be used in our community, and I really appreciated you doing the breakdown of every instance when they were used. Now, the descriptions that are used in the report came from the vendor, and so I know you don't have any control over them, but some of them include fairly specific descriptions of military applications. And so I was wondering if it's possible to replace those descriptions with some sort of more accurate description of how we would typically utilize these pieces of equipment in a municipal setting, or if it's just standard to include the vendor's descriptions.
Thank you for that question. So when I created this report, the idea was that to have complete and full transparency with the community and what equipment that we own and why it was designed for what it is. The application of force and the tools we use sometimes are not pretty. That's the nature of the business that we're in. And I also didn't think it was appropriate to either, I don't know if water down is the right word, but change the description of what it is and then not to be accused of trying to mislead anyone. So we felt that it was really important. That's also why we show a picture of the item. So we go right to the manufacturer's website, we get the description, what it's designed for, what it is, and it doesn't necessarily go into detail as far as when we're going to use each one of these tools, but we feel it's important to be honest with our community, and these are the tools that exist, and we have policies, procedures, and how and when we deploy each one of these tools, and we're held accountable to those.
Absolutely appreciate that transparency. Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. Councilmember Marks.
Thank you. Yeah, this was really very interesting, and I'm glad that the use is being so carefully monitored. I want to thank you. And just for clarification, this is military equipment. Is it remaindered from the Army, or is it military because it's a kind of thing that the military uses? Or if you could just clarify a little bit why these items are considered military.
Thank you for your question. It would be helpful in the legislation if it said military-like equipment. That would be a good distinction. None of our equipment comes from the military, and so it looks like military equipment. Some of it could be used in the military, but none of it is military equipment. There's a 1033 program at the federal level where we can get decommissioned equipment from the military. A lot of agencies take advantage of that, and you can get weapons and a whole host of things that's decommissioned from the military. Our city, our police department doesn't do that, and we've slowly been sending any of our equipment back to the government. So we don't participate in possessing military equipment. So, however, the way the law is written, it covers equipment that could be military or essentially look like military equipment. I know that's a convoluted answer,
that's good.
but I think what the legislators' intent was to hold agencies responsible that, one, may participate in the 1033 program and use real military equipment, or agencies that are procuring their equipment from community or civilian vendors like we do that look or perform like military equipment. And so I think the intent is certainly the same, that we're held accountable to report this information and say, we have these things, and these things are commonly found in the military. And we're certainly welcome to that level of scrutiny. But for our case in particular, we don't possess any of these items on the list that came from the military.
Thank you. No, I think it's important because you guys are peace officers, and so I like that term. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Shorsman.
Sorry, that sparked one more question for me.
Sure.
So does the law specifically state what types of equipment are military equipment? I could see that there could be some subjectivity in determining that one type of weapon is a military type of equipment and another type that's similar is not, or how do you decide what goes into the report and what doesn't?
Yes, and thankfully the law and the legislators provided us a very detailed list of what they would consider or like to see reported as military-like equipment. And so we follow that list to the T. And so if it's on that list, again, it's a very specific list, then it gets reported. The description is listed in the report along with the picture, and then we explain the uses of it.
Thank you. I suspected that was the case, but thank you for confirming.
Thank you so much. Well, I don't have any more questions because we've already gone through quite a few, and I just really appreciate this very long report, and I mean that in a good way, very thorough report of the annual report and the military equipment. We'll go ahead and move it open to any public comment, and then do the deliberations and go from there. Any public comment?
No, we do not have any.
Okay, great. So move forward to deliberations. I know Vice Mayor Pease, you mentioned you wanted to share some thoughts.
Yeah, so mostly, appreciation for the report and the transparency. I'd say that the two things that stand out to me that might be helpful considerations in future reporting is that multi-year trends when it is appropriate, just kind of taking a little bit of a harder look, because I think because it is glitchy, that having a longer trend could still be helpful for us in analyzing, like, oh, this really is being effective in how we're funding things, et cetera. And so even if there are asterisks and footnotes and exceptions, I mean, we had to just talk about COVID today on the noise one, right? So anyway, I think it would be helpful. Maybe it's not relevant for every point of data, but I think that would be something that would be helpful for us up here to understand a little bit longer term on the trends. And then the only other comment I have is, and thank you to Councilmember Francis for bringing up the descriptions and for the transparency about why we do that. There's maybe something in between because there is a bit of a sales pitch as I was just kind of quickly scanning through these, noticing that one of the pieces, semi-automatic rifle, it goes through the description, a shoulder, use whatever, and then at the end it says, more than just a rifle, the Model 82 is an American icon. Yeah, and so I'm just not sure that we need that in our, policing of the future to be celebrating. I get it that they have a use, but maybe we can think about language in that way. I know that that's on everybody's mind, that you guys are doing a really great job about. So those would be my only two comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Marks.
Yes, when the moment's right, I'd like to move that we receive and file both of these reports.
Great, thank you. Well, I'd have just one last comment. I think as we talk about the tracking idea, you know, I still kind of keep coming back to what could we do regarding tracking, because I do think that noise has been brought because there were a lot of community members that bring that to us as a frustration, us being staff, council, police, et cetera. But each of the other issues are smaller, which is wonderful in our community. I'm very happy for that. But also, when we are asked in future times for budget changes or budget purchases, it might be a little bit helpful to understand maybe from the spider request and getting that feedback back, and we're seeing that, hey, this has decreased because feedback is happy. This sounds very simplified, but just trying to figure out how do we have a better understanding of the long-term look. It might be useful. So I don't know what that looks like, and it sounded like there wasn't really a solid template for that as far as best practices, but if there's anything that we could look at, that would be interesting to talk about. Not a mandate, just an interesting to talk about idea next. Otherwise, I think if you'd like to move Councilmember Marks, I'm good with seconding.
We don't have any public comment. Yeah, and I just wanted, before I make the motion, I just wanted to say that maybe a couple of sentences that clarifies that these weapons that our department has are not haven't been purchased from the military. They're just comporting with a list that's in the legislation, something like that. A couple of sentences that might make people feel more comfortable, the general public. So with that, I'd like to move a staff recommendation on this item.
Thank you. Happy to second. And can we have a roll call?
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Mayor Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Francis?
Yes.
Councilmember Shorsman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pease?
Yes.
And the motion passes 5-0. We've received and are filing your reports. Thank you very much. So next on our agenda is item 6B, which is introducing an ordinance amending Title VI Animals of the San Luis Obispo Municipal Code. And I believe, Deputy Chief, will you be staying with us? Wonderful. No worries, I just wanted to make sure I'm seating the right person. And again, I do know there are a couple new people in the room. If you do have public comment, please go ahead and get the slip into the city clerk so you can share your public comment later.
Good. Madam Mayor, members of council, thank you again for having us. This will be another relatively short presentation on an animal services ordinance amendment presented tonight. Trying to have a little bit of fun with our animal services ordinance. We talked about the dog park earlier. Animals seem to be on the mind, so hopefully a little brevity in the presentation because it's not as fancy as Deputy Chief Michael's presentation that was very professional. So, but overall here, what we're talking about tonight is an amendment to the San Luis Obispo Municipal Code, Title VI Animals, and it's what we're looking to do is to incorporate the San Luis Obispo County Code Title IX Animals into our code, and we're going to explain why we want to do that. So all cities in the county contract with the county for animal services. Nobody runs their own animal services department. Those services include not only enforcement, but use of the animal shelter and those associated services. I've also included a photo of our beautiful new county animal services center, which if you haven't had the chance to get out and see, hopefully y'all have. It really is a great facility out there off Highway 1. So animal control officers employed by the county are now enforcing regulations in every city in the county. And every city in the county has their own municipal code for animals that has largely existed for many, many years. So it creates a very confusing mix of laws for these employees to attempt to enforce. Most of these municipal codes, not only are they old, they're usually not frequently updated because frankly, none of us at the city, since we don't deal in animal control have the expertise to update municipal codes related to animal control. So it creates kind of this perpetual issue. So County Animal Services has asked for each city to adopt County Code Title IX by reference to create symmetry throughout the county. Additionally, the contract that I spoke of earlier that the city has with the county does require ordinance conformity. This is the exact language here that says we have to adopt either by direct incorporation into the municipal code or by way of reference animal control ordinances, which are in conformity to and not in substantial conflict or in variation from Title IX of the county code. Additionally, the county did recently update Title IX on December 8th, 2023. I believe it had actually been some time even that their code had been updated. And so this was really a great opportunity to work hand in hand with the county and all the cities to say, hey, we have now the latest and greatest updated code. And if everyone could incorporate that by reference, we can ensure that throughout the county, we're all up to date. The city of Grover Beach was the first. They adopted via their council the county code on July 22nd, 2024. The city of San Luis Obispo will be the second city in the county should you choose to move forward tonight. And other cities in the county are working towards adoption but don't have council hearing dates set, although I believe I did hear that maybe Paso might be going in September. As we started looking into this project, which has actually been quite some time in the making, probably about 2 years now that we've gone down this path, COVID certainly didn't help this process. But through that process, both County Code Title IX and City Code Title VI were reviewed for similarities and differences by the city attorney and county animal services. And I did want to mention Eric Anderson, who's the county animal services manager, is in attendance here tonight and did a lion's share of the legwork, helping us understand which of our municipal codes correlate to which county code, and are these the same, are they different, et cetera. And then our assistant city attorney, Mark Amberg, worked really hard on it as well, really helping to incorporate so we understand what it is we're doing with this reference. Most of the existing city Title VI sections are in County Title IX in very similar form, and they can be completely rescinded with this reference so that there's no duplication. But the city does retain the ability to keep specific rules. Each city has different things that are important. If you're in Atascadero, you can't feed the ducks in the pond, but that's not really important here in San Luis Obispo if we don't have the same pond, right? So we do have some specific regulations that I'm going to discuss that we're proposing that we keep. And really the goal of this entire proposal is to incorporate the county code by reference, but keeping our animal control regulations in the city as much the same as possible to the status quo. We're not really looking at changing anything. We're just trying to get updated and be in conformity with the county. So I'm gonna throw out a wonderful kudo to this photo here taken by Chief Scott, his dog, and some beautiful landscape of San Luis Obispo. But the proposed sections of rescinding in Municipal Code Title VI are the sections you can see here really surrounding definitions, the public pound, impoundment procedures, dog licensing, animal control regulations, kennels, pet shops, catteries, aviaries, and some domestic animals and poultry. These sections, for the most part, would be completely rescinded. And some retention, some subsections there that are specifically pointed out that we're going to retain, and I'm going to discuss why we want to retain these sections. The first one, in keeping noisy animals, in review of our city code, there is a very, very similar county code. However, some minor changes in the language. Our city attorney felt that in order to ensure that we're keeping our noise standards the same and our residents can enjoy the peace and quiet of their neighborhoods that they expect, we didn't want to take any chances with changing any of that language. So we're proposing keeping that section. Some animal definitions for section 6.28. These were left in because we are keeping 3 sections later in 6.28, so we wanted to ensure that the same animal definitions would be applied rather than getting rid of the definitions and then a later section might be applied to a different definition in the county code. So it gets slightly confusing because there's two different sets of animal definitions, one here for 6.28, but the county overall animal definitions would cover the rest of the code. Really related to the keeping of animals, and I know there was some talk on this, the county only allows a maximum of 3 cats, for instance, in someone's home. The city of San Luis Obispo has always allowed 5. And so we are keeping this regulation so we can retain anyone with 5 cats. There's no concern that they have to pick their 3 favorite. So they can just keep their cats and we'll retain that section. We also have prohibitions on beekeeping and breeding in the city, and we have just continued to keep those the same. Some minor changes to existing regulations. Some of these have really been occurring, and it's really more of a clarification in the county code. The county no longer impounds healthy stray cats. This actually has not occurred since 2019, since just before COVID. What I've been educated on is this is actually the standard and the best practice now to not just go impound healthy stray cats. They're healthy, they're figuring it out. So if there's obviously a problem, if it's causing a nuisance, that's different. So this code just specifically is explaining what has actually been the occurrence since 2019, that we're not actually doing this. Licensing of dogs has changed slightly. Prior licensing was 1 year. It's now can be valid for up to 3 years. But the county does the licensing, so those processes are under their control, but there is a higher level maximum on term. Licensing fees are set by the county and will be updated annually. Really no change because the county is who currently does our licensing, and so they're already setting the fees. And complaints arising from noisy animals can escalate to a complaint with the district attorney. This is currently possible now. This code is just making it clear so people understand. Right now it could go through the city attorney's office, but the county does have the ability to go through the district attorney if something were to escalate to that level. So really not much of a change. Some new regulations, little fun here. So prohibit unauthorized feeding of animals on property not their own. So you can't go to someone else's property and start feeding something. Could really be a problem. And also a law that requires animals to pick, or excuse me, requires owners of animals. I'm looking at this photo and I can't require them. The owners have to remove the waste if it's not on their own property. So it just helps keep our city clean and beautiful. A couple of other regulations, some prohibitions on the keeping of dangerous and wild animals, including large and venomous snakes, wolf hybrid dogs, and others. This section actually is, we can thank the city because there was a very large python many years ago, I believe, that got out, and that section actually came from that incident that was big enough it could have harmed a small child or other pets, et cetera. And then a section requiring motorists that strike a domestic animal to either stop and render aid or make an official notification to some agency, which is great practice. Finally, a requirement of microchipping of dogs and cats, and I want to mention with this, currently if the county animal control takes in an animal that is found as a stray or for whatever reason it's in their possession, they're currently required by law to microchip that animal. There are low-cost options for that, but if the owner comes to pick up that animal and they cannot afford to pay for that microchip, by law they cannot deny returning the animal to the owner. But that's already the law. When an animal is in their possession, this is just making it kind of a standard. And then a couple of cat items here. If you have a cat that you're allowing to roam at large, the cat cannot be unaltered, has to be altered. And if somebody finds an unaltered cat roaming at large, they can actually have the cat altered at their own expense. And finally, if you're going to allow your cat to roam outdoors, it needs to be vaccinated against rabies. Animals will not be confiscated for any of these violations. Nobody's going to be knocking on doors, checking microchips on animals, et cetera. It's just if these animals come into contact with animal control, you know, they will ensure that they're microchipped and that they don't do the vaccinations, I believe, but they can connect to low-cost clinics and other things to try to provide some of those. So that being said, those are the talking points that I have. So the recommendation is to approve this draft ordinance to incorporate County Code Title 9 by reference as proposed, but happy to open it up to any discussion. And if there's any specific questions on county code that I can't answer, Mr. Anderson is here to assist if needed.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Marks.
Yes, under 6.28.080 beekeeping, there is an exception for agricultural activities and also school activities. And I'm concerned about the prohibition on breeding animals in that City Farm Slow has animals, and we have a sheep shearing event every year, and there's also a Ram Dama Ding Dong who shows up once a year and does his duty to the ladies there. So I think there should also be an exception for land that is zoned ag. We just have one parcel, I think, City Farm Slow. I don't know exactly what the wording would be on that, but there are also roosters and hens breeding. And you know, it's a small operation, but I wouldn't want them to be violating any ordinances by breeding sheep. So I wanted to bring that up. Was that considered at all? Do you know? The prohibition on breeding, was the agricultural activity at all considered?
So I think to answer your questions, the existing laws that are there wouldn't be changing. So for instance, in the beekeeping, you cited that there's some exceptions.
Yes.
That would not change. I didn't put the whole section in this slide, but whatever the current beekeeping section is now, as is, was proposed to retain that, because again, we weren't looking to make any changes as possible.
Right.
With the breeding, again, whatever the current rules are now for no breeding in the city, we did not do the research to say, maybe we should change this, do people want this changed, et cetera. It was, we're gonna keep this as is, because SLO has always had this law prohibiting breeding as is. The county actually doesn't have that, which is why we had to retain that section. Certainly if council has an interest in looking at that section on breeding, certainly probably could request staff take a look at that, or maybe, you know, make changes if that's what was desired, but that was not part of this project at all to evaluate the breeding.
Okay, so we'll get back to that during deliberation. So thank you. That's all the questions I had.
Thank you. My question was beekeeping as well. Any other questions at this time? Wow. Okay. Is there any public comment?
No, there's not.
All right, we'll move forward to deliberation. Aside of any Ramalama Ding Dong situations, I am looking at page 344 where there's a bees prohibited exception. So I'm guessing that's what refers to our agriculture and education section. It would be helpful if that was just spelled out a little bit more. So not necessarily to say a yes or a no to this entire thing, but entire agenda item, but we may want to explain that just a little bit more for people that think they have that ability and then now might think they can't. So that was my one thought. Councilmember Shoresman.
Yeah, thank you. The reason I don't have any questions now is because we had a bit of an email exchange about some of the language that I found confusing, and I appreciate the clarifications and the city attorney helped with some of that confusion that I had as well. In general, I think it's always a good idea when you've got two entities with shared responsibility for something to try and simplify and coordinate and have things refer back to each other so that it makes sense, and ordinances and laws are not necessarily written in a very user-friendly way, and so however we can simplify things is better for the user in our community. There is still some language, and it doesn't need to happen now, because I realize that we're trying to get into compliance and coordinate these two pieces of law regulation with each other. But at some point, there were some parts of the language that I thought were confusing that could be cleaned up around the definitions. And we had a discussion back and forth over email about what a house pet is, and is that a chicken or a rabbit, or is that livestock? Like, there's just some places where I think some of that language is a little bit confusing. And so maybe in a future iteration, when there's more changes that need to be made, I would kind of recommend that we go back and look at all the language to make it as clear as possible.
That makes a lot of sense. Councilmember Marks.
Yeah, well, this is no surprise, but I would like to have similar language in the breeding section that we have with the beekeeping, which is for, I don't have the language right there, but just to show that so we have this one ag zone, and, oh, you have it right here. What does it say?
This is the revision provides for the permitting regulation, breeding and sales. That might be helpful if you go back. City Attorney, did you want to add to this conversation?
Yes, the city manager and I were just discussing mirroring the beekeeping language. It occurs to us as you're having this discussion that there may also be breeding on school grounds for FFA purposes that's happening. So you could simply add that same type of language, providing that nothing herein shall be deemed to prohibit breeding, which is for the purpose of study, which is situated and kept within school grounds, or for agricultural purposes located within a conservation open space or agricultural zoning district.
That'd be perfect.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. 'Cause I think our code, when we adapted it last time, we said hive or box within a school building when we were just talking about the bees. But then since there is additional breeding, school grounds would make a lot more sense, or educational grounds. I think there might be still.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I missed the
That's okay.
last
I was just
part of
saying,
what you were
in our last iteration, we were specifically talking about bees at that time. So we said hive or box within a school building, but realistically, we do have, as we discussed in FFA or 4-H, a little more than just bees, and so a building might not be the appropriate, so maybe school grounds.
Right, I was thinking for educational purposes within school grounds.
Right. So, of course, I hate to ask this question, but I will. What about home school? Would that be a school ground? The city manager?
Yeah, we probably should then not try to do this on the fly, because yes, you could have assertions of that. So let's do a little further work on that. Or if you just for this purpose tonight want to
we could refer that one section.
For educational purposes situated and kept within, or educational or agricultural purposes situated or kept located within a conservation open space or agricultural zoning district.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to.
I think it would be great to have just that one aspect come back to us, or we can give you the administrative ability to use the correct wording, because I do think that school grounds aspect, whether it's district designated school grounds or something of that sort, might be helpful and important. Councilmember Schwarzman?
I was just going to ask, this will have to come back as a second reading, right? So I guess I would feel comfortable with staff stepping away from tonight and figuring out what the best language is and just bringing it back in the second reading, and then if we have an
The problem is
issue-
if we don't land on language, it'll be a reintroduction.
Okay.
And so we do have to have specific language.
Okay, sorry, I was trying to help.
Yeah.
Would district designated school grounds be appropriate? Because then we're not having as much gray area. City manager or city attorney?
Yes, so you would want, provided that nothing herein contained shall be deemed to prohibit the breeding of animals for educational purposes at a location which is situated and kept within a district school ground or for agricultural purposes located within a conservation, open space, or agriculture zoning district.
That would be appropriate to me. Councilmember Marks?
Yeah, I think that would be specific and flexible enough. It sounds good to me, so.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Sorry for the little wrench in the situation here. Councilmember Francis?
Apologies, but just to clarify, with that language also then modify the B language, which currently states that those hives have to be kept indoors, essentially, which doesn't make a lot of sense in the current ordinance. So if we're going to modify that, can we also apply that new language to the beekeeping?
When we, sorry to just chime in here, but when we did this last time, we did say for the bees specifically, existing allowance for the purpose of study and observation in a hive or box within a school building. So it was indoors before.
Right, and so I'm saying it makes sense to modify it because bees can't actually live indoors.
I mean, that does make sense, what you're saying.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we currently, our ordinance that we propose for introduction doesn't change or any way reference that 6.28.070, which is the beekeeping section. So we would just need to add that into this ordinance and essentially show that we're striking building. It would, more than that, actually, we would need to mirror the district
designated school grounds.
District designated school grounds.
And is that something we can do tonight?
Yes, you can cross-reference.
Okay.
If we receive the direction by motion to add that section into the ordinance with the revision as read into the record, then and then the motion would be to introduce that version of the ordinances as modified by direction of the council.
That language has long bothered me, so this would be such a relief.
Obviously, you'll verify that we have gotten it precisely the way you want it upon second reading, and if there are sort of clerical cleanups that you have there, then that's permissible at second reading.
Perfect, thank you. Who knew this would be an additional addition? Vice Mayor Peace? Nope, okay. Any other deliberation? Well, if none, we'll move forward for a motion for item 6B to move forward. I'm happy to pass that, or happy to make that motion. Is there a second? Councilmember Francis.
I'll second.
Great, thank you. City Clerk, can we have roll call? With the modified language, sorry. Thank you very much for that.
Mayor Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Francis?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Shorsman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Peace?
Yes.
Thank you, and the motion passes 5-0. Thank you so much, Deputy Chief Amoroso. And we'll,
Thank you.
We will move
everybody.
forward. I know, right? Love the on the fly when possible. Thank you. We'll move forward to item 6C, which is the public hearing. Whoops, sorry about that. to introduce an ordinance to amend Title 17 zoning regulations to add residential uses as conditionally allowed with a minor use permit in the neighborhood commercial zone. And we have Hannah Han and not Director Timmy Tway, no? Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Stewart and members of the City Council. My name is Hannah Han, Associate Planner with the Community Development Department. I'll be presenting on the last hearing item for tonight. This is a project for a text amendment to the CN zone as initiated by city staff in response to public interest that we've received. Staff is proposing a minor text amendment to add residential uses as conditionally allowed with a minor use permit in the CN zone. These uses were previously allowed with a minor use permit since at least 1981 and until the comprehensive update to the zoning regulations in 2018. At that time, single-family and multifamily residences were removed from the list of allowable uses as part of that larger effort. More recently, however, staff has received public interest in adding these uses back to the CN zone in order to provide flexibility in the development potential and types of uses. The amendment would affect a very minimal number of properties throughout the city. Most parcels in the CN zone are located along the Broad Street corridor between Church and Alfonso, where they are developed with existing residential, personal service, restaurant, retail, and commercial recreational uses. In addition to this corridor, there are 3 smaller groups of CN-zoned parcels throughout the city. The first group includes 2 parcels at the Broad Street and Lincoln Avenue intersection, which are developed with existing restaurants and mixed uses. The second group includes parcels on California between Halfway and Highway 101, which are also developed with existing restaurant, personal service, retail, and convenience store uses. And lastly, the third group includes parcels along Laurel Lane between Augusta and Southwood that are also developed with residents, restaurants, commercial recreation, personal service, and general retail uses. Staff also notes that there are CN-zoned parcels within the San Luis Ranch and Avila Ranch developments. However, those are differently regulated by their respective specific plan or development plan approval and would not be affected by this amendment. Staff has evaluated the amendment for consistency with the underlying land use designation and zone, as well as our major city goals. As summarized here, the neighborhood commercial land use designation and zone are both intended for the establishment of and operation of small-scale, pedestrian-oriented, and low-impact neighborhood-serving uses, which may result in a limited range of allowable uses that are dependent on the nearby residences. In addition, the major city goal for housing states that the city would support the expansion of housing options and facilitate housing production. Therefore, as proposed, the amendment would be consistent with the intent of the neighborhood commercial and also advance the major city goal for housing. It would add residential uses as additional options to provide flexibility in the development and uses of the CN zone. In addition, the amendment would also facilitate additional housing opportunities in areas that are also next to other residences and compatible neighborhood serving uses. If the amendment is approved, future residential development, like other allowable uses in the CN zone, would be subject to applicable development standards in the zoning regulations. Some examples include density, setbacks, and parking, which are already established as part of our code. As proposed, staff finds that the text amendment is exempt from environmental review under the general rule exemption of the CEQA guidelines. The project is limited to a minor text amendment where subsequent development would require discretionary review, and environmental review would be evaluated on a project-specific basis for each minor use permit application. As such, staff recommends that the City Council introduce a draft ordinance to amend Table 2-1 in Title 17 of the Municipal Code with an exemption from environmental review. The amendment would add single-family and multifamily uses as conditionally allowed with a minor use permit in the CN zone. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your staff report because not only did it make a very complex concept for someone who's not in planning to get through it and make it make sense, because to me it was so logical that a house that was a house before could be a house now, but apparently it's not as logical, so I really appreciate that. Vice Mayor Pease.
Thank you. Did agenda review this morning, and I asked a question that I'm just going to ask again and maybe even answer and just make sure that I get it right, which is that that we do have this is with a minor use permit, so a MUP, versus just a flat-out allowed use. And so that staff director Tway had shared that that we could have it just be an allowed use, but that because there's so few of these little parcels that have this zoning, that would give like a little bit of review and control over that process. So that made a lot of sense. I guess the follow-up question that I have is that it got dropped before, is my understanding, when we did this revision. Was it always a MUP before it got dropped? Do you know what that history was? Or was it an allowed use before that 2018 or whenever that little switcheroo was?
Oh, to clarify, before the 2018 comprehensive update, when it was removed, even beforehand, it was conditionally allowed with a minor use permit.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilmember Shorsman.
Yeah, thank you for the report and the explanation. Agree with the mayor. It was nice and short, sweet, and to the point and clear. Always just looking at, what the history is and how we got where we were. And it appears from the staff report that this was, potentially just an oversight and a big overhaul of our zoning code. This kind of got lost in the shuffle and it got changed maybe inadvertently, and that you all reviewed the staff reports and documentation. And I asked this over email as well, but just to confirm, did you watch the meetings where this was discussed, and just make sure that this does really seem like it was just sort of an accidental miss that got changed, or did we cross all our T's and dot all our I's to make sure that this, is not going to have any negative impacts?
So in my research for this revision, I had looked through all of the written documentation that we had, also looked into the public hearings that were held with Planning Commission as well over a span of over a year's time. And so I think with the update at the time, that was a really comprehensive update. It had a lot of substantial, significant changes. And so I couldn't find any specific evidence that pointed to like this specific revision. I think at the time there were a lot of other large changes that were occurring. We had updated the look of our zoning regulations, reorganized the whole framework of it, redefined land use definitions and consolidated a lot of information. And so I couldn't, I don't think this particular revision had warranted that type of discussion at the time. And so I didn't see anything specific that, had led staff, in one direction or the other to remove it. And so I think, with the current interest from the public, we've considered some circumstances which I believe have changed, especially with our aggressive housing policies, changes from the pandemic to, just help local business owners, local property owners with, just different opportunities for their properties. And it seems like this would be a very minor change that would help support that.
Thank you. That was a very thorough answer.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Do we have any public comment?
No, we do not.
Okay. Any deliberation, Vice Mayor Peace?
So, I support this. I think that I have some recollection at the time that this was all going on, that there was interest in neighborhood retail, like little walking, So I could see that perhaps getting lost in that overall goal of wanting to support these neighborhood commercials. So there, but anyway, I agree. It seems, if nothing else, then the climate has changed anyway in what it is we're trying to do. So if there's no other comments, I'd be happy to make a motion for staff recommendation.
Well, I do think, I guess you bring up a question for me then. So, sorry. This wouldn't necessarily stop that if someone did want to go from, in those same CN, from residential to a small bodega. That would still be fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like someone going from a, not that we have one, but a small bodega back to a residential. It could go either way, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
just
It's
making
just
sure.
that if you went from the small bodega to a residential, then you would need this minor use permit rather than just a flat out allowed.
Right, right. But since it was minor use permit either before that, it's about the same.
It's the same.
Okay.
in other words, yes.
Just, sorry, just making sure
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
processing what you're asking or saying. Councilmember Schwarzman.
No, I agree. This makes sense. I just kind of wanted to, cover the bases out loud here on the dais to make sure that we, didn't lose something in translation with the history. But it makes sense to me. It seems like the minor use permit is a good sort of fail-safe to make sure that nothing goes crazy. Not that I could see that it would, but I appreciate the suggestion. I'm happy to second the motion when we're ready.
Thank you, and I appreciate your question for any unintended consequences. We're trying to avoid those as much as we can when we make these policy changes, so I definitely hear that. And in the desire to see that our major city goals more achieved, I think this is a great way to do that, so. Councilmember Marks, did you have?
I was going to second it, but Michelle Schwarzman beat me to it, so.
Okay, just making sure.
I support this.
All right, so we have, did you have anything else? Okay, so we have Vice Mayor Pease has made the motion and Councilmember Schwarzman has seconded. Can we have a roll call?
Vice Mayor Pease?
Yes.
Councilmember Schwarzman?
Yes.
Councilmember Francis?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Mayor Stewart?
Yes, and the motion passes 5-0. Thank you so much for your work. And thank you, Director Tway, for helping move this all along. All right, well, this is the fun part of, or the second most fun part of the meeting, which is the liaison reports and communications. I always love hearing what everyone's been up to. Obviously, we've been out on a little break during summer, so we might have a couple more weeks. And if anyone would like to start, otherwise I'm happy to as well. Vice Mayor Pease.
Thank you. The one thing that I wanted to report on was under SLOCOG, just to, we've talked about this before as kind of a heads up in terms of the allocation that the SLOCOG had committed $10.2 million to the Prado Road overpass. And because of the timing of the project, we're not able to utilize that funding. So at the meeting last week, we did vote as a SLOCOG board to shift that money, and it's going to go towards, it was going to go towards the Bob Jones Trail. So hopefully that can still squeak out depending on the timing, but the other piece is going to go to Shell Beach Road. Has a shared use path that's going to be part of that mitigation down there. So I feel good that at least, you know, we're using those monies in the meantime to do some great bike and trail work. And the resolution included a commitment on the behalf of SLOCOG to next cycle come back to a 10% commitment to the Prado Road overpass. So I want to let everybody know.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Marks.
Thank you. Well, on July 22nd, I attended a neighborhood watch gathering in San Luis Ranch, and it was very successful. There's a bit of concern in our neighborhood due to a number of incidents that have happened, including active shooter. There's the fire that could have possibly been arson, but then we have a number of lost individuals in our neighborhood that may occasionally move packages around, and so that was very successful, and I think we're going to move forward on that. Then on the 25th of July, I attended the mayor and advisory chair meeting, which is always a fantastic meeting. It's just great, and of course our mayor does a great job. So, but it's so uplifting just to get all of that input from the advisory chairs at once. We had another neighborhood gathering on August 6th in San Luis Ranch, which this was the neighbors' night out, and the police and the fire showed up, and all the kids, and it was and dogs, and it was just wonderful. Another good one. And then on the 13th, we all, I think, attended the ribbon cutting at North Broad Street Park, and that was also wonderful. So on the 14th, the IWMA board met, and at that time, we are in the process of considering purchasing a new building at 555 Choro, which would allow all of our staff to be in one place, because right now we're half in the Tees House and half in the 860, I think 860 Osos across the street from City Hall. So anyway, I'll keep you, we're in escrow, we'll see how that goes. If that does go, then the present building where the IWMA is across from City Hall will also have to be sold in order to finance the purchase of this larger building. And then on the 15th, I attended the Investment Oversight Committee, and our investments are doing really well, stable, and I think the folks who are managing our investments they seem to be very clued in and making good choices. So that was good. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Councilmember Shorsman.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just hit the highlights because it was a busy month. The day after our last meeting, we had a Homeless Services Oversight Committee meeting, and there's a lot going on, as you all know, with homeless services, and the promise of lots of new data coming out of the county's new HMIS system. And the committees, one of the subcommittees is looking at data elements that can be dashboard type items that at some point in the future, when we have enough data, trying to put some of that information out publicly so that people can see on a somewhat regular basis what's happening in terms of new permanent supportive housing units that are coming online, number of people that are being served, and hopefully some other interesting data elements to show the work that's really being done towards the 5-year strategic plan on homelessness. I also attended the labor breakfast at the end of last month at the Elks with Assemblymember Don Addis and many of the local labor groups. So that was a good opportunity to kind of hear what's going on locally on those fronts. Welcome Home Village meetings continue with our partners at the county to get ready for that process and the eventual building of those units. I think we're several months out still from shovels in the ground on that project, but activity continues. Also got to tour the Anderson Hotel last week. They are getting very, very, very close to starting to move people in the next couple of months here. And they have about 18 people that had lived there before that want to return. And so that leaves about 40 units for new individuals. And the other people that were living there that they've placed in other housing want to stay where they're at. So good outcomes all the way around, and maybe some new units for people. And last but not least, volunteered this past Friday night at Concerts in the Plaza, putting wristbands on people, and the mayor and I were there, and then Vice Mayor Pease showed up, and so we had a non-policy oriented fun putting wristbands on people grouping there. Yeah.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun. Councilmember Francis.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys, for all of the work that you've done over the last month. I was able to go to labor presentation up at the Mid-State Fair on July 19th and hear about all of the different apprenticeship programs that are going on locally across the county, which was really great. And on the 14th of August, I was able to attend a Tobacco Coalition meeting with a presentation that was focused on tobacco regulations in multifamily housing and what a lot of other communities have done in our region. So that was really interesting. On the 15th, I was able to attend SCLC with the mayor. We discussed goal setting for the coming academic year. And that same day was our CAPSLO monthly meeting, and kind of a couple of the relevant items we discussed for our region there, since CAPSLO covers a lot of different areas, is that we talked about the continued funding for Child and Youth Family Services food program, and then also approved the grant submittal for First Five San Luis County for 2 streams of funding for family and community support services, as well as childcare resource connections. So fingers crossed that those funding sources come through for us. And that's it.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank my colleagues here while I was out for a bit, being able to hold down the city. One of the fun things that we get to do as being mayor, as Councilmember Marks knows, is the state of California gives us the ability to marry someone, be the officiant. So I got to marry my sister and her new husband, so that was a lot of fun during that time. But right before we left for that wedding, went to the advisory body board meeting. And I love that meeting because we have so many people that help us, advise us, and help make this community great. And hearing what they're doing in all these different committees is really wonderful, and just kind of takes me on a walk down like memory lane, but also a walk down the future of what we're doing in our community. So I really love that meeting. I also attended the labor presentation with Councilmember Francis, and again, just trying to figure out how do we help our students who are not necessarily going to university to be able to have good paying jobs, and in the education and training for that was really fascinating. Got to try to blow bubbles, and I tell you, blowing bubble gum is not as easy at 50 something as it was when I was a kid. So I did the bubblegum alley thing with Senator Laird, and I have not been in bubblegum alley like physically for a long time, and it's an interesting place. I really want to appreciate all of the Parks and Rec staff for the Monday meetups. I attended the Duval Park Monday meetup this last Monday, the 12th, and it was so great. And I watched it through the summer continue to grow. More and more food trucks. Many of the community members mentioned that to me and said, wow, last year there was like just a few and now there's so many. I'm glad I came. And so that was really cool. And then the North Broad Park ribbon cutting, not only were we all there and that was really great, but it's so much more beautiful than I even pictured in my mind. And so the team did a really great job. I look forward to whenever PG&E gets us electricity, so we can have some really good lighting there, because that is really important to me. And I just thought that was fabulous. The last couple days have been a little bit wildly busy. The 15th, we had the Student Community Liaison Committee, SCLC, and with that, not only did we talk about neighborhood wellness and coming together and noise, reducing noise hopefully, but we also got to meet new people. We had a new ASI student body president who was here today for Cal Poly, Ashley Spragans, and we also had Lucia Landeros, who is the Cuesta student body president. They co-chair that, and they really did a great exercise to help us get to know each other and help. They paired a city and long-term resident and student together in all of these different groups, and really tried to figure out how do we move forward in neighborhood wellness. So that was really great. On the 16th, not only did we go and check if everyone was 21, whether they were drinking alcohol, but I got to go to the Restorative Partners event, Bridging the Gap at the Fremont. And watching these individuals tell their stories was so inspirational. These are individuals who were incarcerated and later were given the tools to be authors. And so they're writing their own story, they're publishing their own books, and it was a fascinating time, and I really encourage you, if you get a chance, to check it out at all. Some of the books, they're on the Restorative Partners page, and really, really good. Also got to see Daryl Grigsby, retired Public Works Director, and he also shared his book. It's coming out in December, so absolutely fabulous. And to top off the end of the weekend, I did a ride-along, and I have to say, I had been offered this opportunity through Leadership SLO a couple of times, and going on a ride along was incredibly scary to me as a concept, and I never wanted to do it ever. And you know, I'd been on this council now for 6 years, and mayor, obviously, and have spent a lot of time getting to know our police department, and their community policing has been so clear of the culture change, and the individuals I got to know. We went to DC to honor the memorial for Officer Benedetti. It just made me say, this is the time, let's do this. And it was a great experience. Officer Tyler, I got to ride along with him. We had a very active night. Saw a couple DUIs, people going down the street the wrong way on Higuera, some other traffic situations, and it was a hit and run. It was a wild couple of hours, or a few hours. So if you haven't, I'm sure you all have already gone on the ride along. It was very, it was not just eye-opening for the events going on, but just to see our officers briefing together at first, but also kind of joking around and having some fun with each other before they got onto the shift. It was just really great. So I really appreciate the whole police department welcoming me on this ride along and sharing what they go through on a regular basis. So that's the end of my very long report. So. And now, last thing to say as we adjourn is I really appreciate our city manager and Councilmember Marks working on 3CE. As you know, they both sit on, well, along with Bob Hill, the Operations and Policy Board of 3CE, Community Choice Energy. There's some potential changes that will be on the boards and reducing the board size. So we already had a closed session meeting planned for a personnel issue tomorrow, and so we will be starting just a little bit early, and I thank you all for meeting so we can discuss this and get a better understanding before they have their special meeting next week to discuss this board issue. So I will see you all tomorrow at the council hearing room right here at City Hall at 5:30, and then we'll go back to our regular meeting on Tuesday after Labor Day on the 3rd.
Can you clarify that that item is open session?
Oh, yes, thank you so much. So our opening kind of study session, I guess you could say, about what 3CE is doing with their board is open. The whole community can come and hear what's happening. Our goal is to understand a little bit more, but also to provide true transparency to our community, because when our community hears that they had this choice, but then they don't know what's happening. It seems very, very murky, and I just want to be able to give our community at least the transparency and the communication that they deserve. So that is open, and then the personnel conversation will not be open. That'll be a closed session.
But at 5:30, we're meeting for the 3CE.
5:30 p.m. 3CE right here tomorrow. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, closed session will follow. Yeah. I don't know the exact moment of closed session. It'll be whenever our 3CE conversation ends, from 5:30 to 6, 5:30, 6:30, we shall see. Thank you for putting that together so quickly, City Manager and Councilor Marks. We very much appreciate it. And with that, I hope you all have a great evening. 9 o'clock feels amazing, and thank you.
Yay.